Live, going live. And we're live. Hello, folks. Just popping on a wee moment early just to check that everything's working okay as usual. That's just coming up to 1 minute to 9. And I have little green dots down there telling me that everything can be heard okay, hopefully. And that I can see myself all right. So there we are. It's coming up to 9 o'clock. So if anybody's joining us, do say hello tonight. We're getting ready for the penultimate penultimate chapter of Dune, which is chapter 47. So there we go. So there's 9 o'clock. So I'll say hello. There's Chaya Rivka saying shalom duck. Hello, Chaya. Nice to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. It's been a wee while. I hope you're keeping well. So yeah, I'll just say hello. Welcome to Doc Sloan's Science Fiction Station and our Dune Book Club. I've got a really tickly nose tonight. I was doing my head, and it's one of those things that just won't seem to go away. So, and we're going to hit the penultimate chapter, chapter 47 tonight, which I'm really looking forward to. A reasonably short chapter compared to the one that's coming. And probably one of my favorite chapters in the book, I'd say, featuring Alia. I'm really bringing Alia to the fore here. And again, probably one of my favorite characters. This is Alia really shines here. I think is a fascinating character. And we get to have a wee look at her today. So there's Brad saying, good morning, Brad. Or good evening, Brad. Morning to you. And Telios to us saying, evening, Doc. Howdy, Chaya, etc. Hi, Babs. How are you keeping? Bojack Hartness saying, hey, all. Hi, Bojack. Thanks for joining us. We're, excuse me, we're heading towards the end of a journey in a funny way, aren't we, folks? Excuse me when I get a wee sip of the purple. But just sort of looking at what the work I've put in, all the comments and things over the nearly 2 years, I suppose we've been at this with my bit of time away. So it's been interesting. And I said we'll probably move through this chapter reasonably quickly tonight. I think it's an interesting chapter. There's a little bit of politicking in it and stuff, but I think it's an interesting chapter for a number of reasons, and I suppose we'll get to them when we get to them. And Frank's still sort of dropping little things for us here within this chapter as well, things for us to check out and wonder at and look up if we're so inclined, I suppose. But of course, this is one of those adversarial chapters, if you like. And I'll just quickly say this before we get into it, that obviously the next chapter is a big one. I generally takes me, I don't know how I would put it, about 2 hours to do. I do 2 hours of work on one page of the book. So the next one's going to take me X amount of hours, if you see what I mean. And the final chapter is going to be a very long episode. So hopefully I will have it done within a fortnight of this episode. That's what I'm aiming for. And yeah, fingers crossed with that. It's going to be a chunk of work. And of course, we're not finished with that. Once we have the final chapter done, we do have another chapter to look at, which is the prologue. Another interestingly, of course, with Frank, the prologue is at the back of the book, which is kind of amusing, I've always thought. So let's just I just get to my notes here. And yeah. So just our last chapter left was with Paul, and I suppose a lot of questions to ask and what was going on with that. Chuckling and rubbing his hands with glee about the nature of real cruelty, this kind of thing. And of course, Leto II is dead. So as usual, folks, there's Ryan the Scar saying, cheers, everybody. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for joining us. As usual, we're just about to kick off, Ryan. So as usual, we'll start with the epigraph, number 47. And Muad'Dib stood before them, and he said, though we deem the captive dead, yet does she live. For her seed is my seed, and her voice is my voice. And she sees unto the farthest reaches of possibility, yea, unto the veil of unknowable does she see because of me. From Arrakis Awakening by the Princess Irulan. Excuse me. So just in terms of what this is, I think we'll find out a little bit more about this within the chapter. But this is part of a ceremony for a hostage, I believe. And this one, I think, is very specific in this case. This one is definitely referring to Alia, I think, as we'll see. But basically, the captive is deemed dead, yet does she live? This thing. For her seed is my seed, and her voice is my voice. She sees onto the farthest reaches of possibility, yet onto the veil of unknowable does she see because of me. So this really is specifically to do with Alia. And we're going to see Alia in action in a little bit. But this chapter starts off, I suppose, with the Baron at the Imperial hutment. So let's see. So the Baron, we're told, he stood with his eyes downcast in the Imperial audience chamber, the oval Selamlik, within the Padishah's Emperor's hutment. We're told with covert glances the Baron studied the metal-walled room and its occupants. The nookers, the pages, the guards, the troops of Sardaukar drawn up around the walls, standing at ease there beneath the bloody and tattered captured battle flags that were the room's only decoration. We've got a couple of words here straight off. This one's been a real tongue twister for me. Selamlik. I did quite well there, didn't I? A Selamlik is a part of an Ottoman palace or house reserved specifically for men. Let me see. I've written something down here, and I can't. From the root word salam, meaning greeting. There we go. In Greek society, I've made a wee note here that this would be the andron or the andronites, which is kind of like a men-only waiting room. So that's what a Selamlik is, a term from the Ottoman Empire. Nookers, from Nooker, I think, is a Mongolian form. So first of all, that's the Selamlik. It's meant to be a waiting room for men only, if you like, the oval Selamlik within the Padishah's Emperor's hutment. Excuse me. And then we have this kind of who's here with the Baron, and we've got a couple of unusual terms. The nookers, or noukers, or noukers, if you like. The pages, the guards, the troop of the House Sardaukar. So nookers, as I read it anyway, I'm told it's Mongolian, and it comes from the classical Persian nouker, knocker, with N umlaut K umlaut O. Sorry, N O with an umlaut, K O with an umlaut R. Knocker means friend. So these are the hangers-on, if you like, of the emperor. Pages, guards, etc. A house troop of Sardaukar as well. So again, a couple of little interesting terms there. And we're getting our scene set for us. Once again, I accidentally turned 2 pages with my notes. So I took the opportunity to scribble a few things. We were talking about the different kind of mandalas and things that you could have. I sort of ended up doing a wee bunch of positioning things with the main characters in this chapter, and found that you could sort of realign them in different ways. There we go. So of course, and we're going to see the Baron Snuffet in this one here. So here, the Emperor. What we're told is that there are voices sounding from the right of the chamber, echoing out of a high passage, and the voices shout, make way for the royal person." And so here we have the entrance of the Emperor, Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV, given his full title here. Came out of, I suppose just like the Baron as well, came out of the passage into the audience chamber, followed by his suite. He stood waiting while his throne was brought, ignoring the Baron, seemingly ignoring everyone in the room. Suite in this case is an old-fashioned term for court followers, if you like, attendees, that kind of thing. Yeah, it comes from sacres, Latin to follow. Right, so let's see. And we get some of the Baron's thoughts here from his kind of point of view. So he found that he could not ignore the royal person, studied the Emperor for a sign, any clue to the purpose of this audience. So the Baron's been brought here. He's kept, I suppose, being kept waiting a bit, but he doesn't have a clue really what he's here for. No specifics. There's Cynthia saying, "Hi, Doc," and everyone. Hi, Cynthia. How are you? Thank you very much for joining us. We've just made a start. Where are we now? So, before we get into the things of this chapter, I think, any clue to the purpose of this audience? The emperor stood poised, waiting, a slim, elegant figure, a grey Sardaukar uniform with silver and gold trim. His thin face and cold eyes reminded the Baron of the Duke Leto long dead. There was the same look of a predatory bird, but, and rather interestingly, the Emperor's hair was red, not black, and most of that hair, we're told, was concealed by a bird's eggs ebon helmet with the imperial crest in gold upon its crown. So a little sort of a little pointer there. I think if we ever look at the David Lynch film, in terms of various relations, the red hair clue with all the Harkonnens and with Jessica, etc., is there, I think. But so the Emperor has very similar features, reminds the Baron of the Duke Leto, long dead, as we're told, has the same look of a predatory bird, but the Emperor's hair was red, not black. So it's just a point of note here. The pages, we're told, brought the throne. We're told it's a massive chair carved from a single piece of Haggal quartz with its blue-green translucency shot through with streaks of yellow fire. They placed it on the dais, and the Emperor mounted and seated himself. So a couple of other wee things here from the book. Hegel, in this case, we're told is the dual planet of 2 Theta Shaowei. Let me see, we just have a wee look in the terminology of the Imperium. We like to look up the planets and see about the meaning of these words, etc. So Hegel is a rune, isn't it? Or Haglas or Hagalas, as I've looked it up. The H rune, let me just find this in the book here. Hagel or Hegel, the dual planet 2 Theta Shaowei, mined out in the time of Shaddam IV. So mined out suggests a planet that suffered an ecological disaster, in that sense that it's been strip mined. So yes, Hegel in this case, Hegel quartz is the H rune, and it means hail, as in the precipitation type of hail, not the greeting. And as I've just, for anybody who's not familiar, I have done a few. There we go. I'll just take from Wikipedia different versions of the rune. And Shaowei, rather interestingly, wasn't too sure about this, but the planet, what we have there is Hagel being the planet, 2 Theta Shaowei being the star. And I think that this is a reference to Shaowei Lu, or if in the Chinese form, surname first would be Liu Shaowei, who was a Chinese warlord, and his dates are 877 to 910 AD. And we were told that he ruled over the Weibo circuit during the late Tang dynasty. The name is often, I suppose, a byword for being unaccountable or uncountable. Is that correct? I think. Let me just double check that. No, it's uncountable. So again, just interesting where Herbert gets these names from. I don't think there's any real relevance, but we're having a little mention just in the back of the book that the Emperor's table comes from a planet that has been strip mined. His throne comes from a planet that's been strip mined. So let me just get back to get my little paperweights down. Excuse me. So we're told an old woman in a black Abba robe with hood drawn over her forehead detached herself from the Emperor's suite and took up station behind the throne. Now, of course, this is the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam, and I think this is very, very unsubtle in some ways. Let me see, just before I turn the page here. So she detached herself from the Emperor's suite, took up station behind the throne, one scrawny hand resting on the court's back. Her face peered out of the hood like a witch caricature, sunken cheeks and eyes, an overlong nose, skin mottled with protruding veins. And we're told that the Baron stilled his trembling at the sight of her. The presence of the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam, the Emperor's truthsayer, betrayed the importance of this audience, And the Baron looked away from her and studied the suite for a clue. And we were told there were 2 guild agents, one tall, one fat. Sorry, pardon me, one tall and fat, one short and fat, both with bland grey eyes, and among the lackeys stood one of the Emperor's daughter, the Princess Irulan, a woman they said was being trained in the deepest of the Bene Gesserit ways, destined to be a Reverend Mother. She was tall, blonde, face of chiseled beauty, green eyes that looked past him and through him. Now, just before we get to the Emperor chatting here, so the Gaius, Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohim here, I suppose the people making entrances here in a way that the Emperor's arriving in a manner fit to impress, if you like, and as does she in a sense. But what she actually does, taking up station behind the throne, putting her hand on it, is a very literal way of demonstrating that I am the power behind the throne. I think it's a very obvious I suppose, nod to it, that as much as the Emperor here, the hand on the back of the throne is the Bene Gesserit. And it's probably a direct signaler of power, isn't it, I think? There's Carlos Chryselius saying, hey all, hi Carlos, thanks for joining us. We're just on to the second page of this chapter 47, Carlos, so we're just at just where the Emperor's about to speak, my dear Baron. So, I just, very interesting. I've just put actual power behind the throne is my note here. And I think it's quite especially with, I think, there are political power games going on here with the guild deciding who can land on the planet, etc., etc. As much as we consider that Choma on the planet, the Emperor's on the planet, the Harkonnens are on the planet, but the Bene Gesserit are here. They're represented at the very least, and I suppose it's fair to say that everybody's represented. But in this important place of power at this time, the Bene Gesserit are definitely here. They're definitely represented, and I wonder, is it just a very obvious display of her actions? I think wouldn't be done without thought, to be calculated, and so I think it's a very overt display of power here. And again, we're presenting the terms for these ladies whenever we do see them, witch-like, etc. This kind of thing. She's a witch caricature, etc., etc. So the Emperor says, my dear Baron, and the Emperor had deigned to notice him, we're told. His voice was baritone with exquisite control. It managed to dismiss him while greeting him. And the Baron bowed low and advanced to the requested 10 paces from the dais. Very good. I come at your summons, Majesty, says the Baron. And Reverend Mother Mohim kind of rather summons, and we're told the old witch cackled. She finds this amusing. And of course, I wonder how much of this banter between the Emperor and the Baron, between the Emperor and Mohim, how much this sort of little bit of banter is planned. I'm curious about it. So summons, and she has a good laugh at this. And of course, the Emperor's, now Reverend Mother, he chided. And we're told, but he smiled at the Baron's discomfiture and said, first you will tell me where you've sent your minion Thufir Hawat. So straight to business here. And the Baron, we're told, darted his gaze left and right, and reviled himself for coming here without his own guards. Not that they've been much use against Sardaukar, still. And it is you kind of wonder why he hasn't come with a bodyguard. And the Emperor asks, well, and of course, so where's Thufir Hawat? And we're told, the Baron replies, he's been gone these 5 days, Majesty. And the Baron shot a glance at the guild agents and back to the Emperor. He was to land at the smuggler base and attempt infiltrating the camp of this Fremen fanatic, this Muad'Dib. The Emperor's incredible. And we're told one of the witch's claw-like hands tapped the Emperor's shoulder, and she leaned forward and whispered in his ear. And the Emperor nodded and said, 5 days, Baron. Tell me why you aren't worried about his absence. But I am worried, Majesty. And we're told the Emperor continued to stare at him, waiting, and Mohim emitted another cackling laugh. Yeah, she's very, very stereotypical witch in this. I think her behavior, if you see what I mean, her presentation. And of course, the Baron says, "Well, what I mean, Majesty, is that Howard will be dead within another few hours anyway." And he explained about the latent poison and the need for an antidote. And the Emperor says, "Well, how clever of you, Baron. And where are your nephews, Raban and the young Fade Rautha?" And the Baron says, "The storm comes, Majesty. I sent them to inspect our perimeter, lest the Fremen attack under cover of the sand." So, a couple of bits of information for us here. Let's see. So, first of all, where's Thufir Hawat? Thufir Hawat has done a runner under the pretense of trying to infiltrate a smuggler camp to meet this Muad'Dib. It looks like Thufir has made an attempt to rally to meet Paul one last time, by the looks of it. It was to land at a smuggler base and attempt infiltrating the camp of this Fremen fanatic, this Muad'Dib. So Thufir doing this has a 5-day time limit to make it. And we don't know if he's made it or not, but at this point, the Baron's expecting this timed poison to kick in very shortly, and hopefully basically kill Thufir. So very clever. Now, what the Baron says next: "The storm comes, Majesty. I sent them to inspect our perimeter, lest the Fremen attack under cover of the sand." So this is the Baron being his usual smart self. You know, he's intelligent. He's a clever strategist, and the chance that a Fremen attack might come under cover of the sand. Well, I suppose expectations and arrogance. The Emperor says perimeter, and the word came out as though it puckered his mouth. "The storm won't be much here in the basin, and that Fremen rabble won't attack while I'm here with 5 legions of Sardaukar." And I've put a wee exclamation mark, ha, kind of thing next to that. So basically, the Baron has sent Raban and Fade Rautha out to patrol the perimeter in case the Fremen attack. He shows that he's smart, because that's exactly what's going to happen. The Emperor has a good bit of disdain over this. And again, I suppose this arrogance that comes, this confidence that the Emperor has. I think we're going to get to see a fair bit of the Emperor's character in this chapter. And to me, I don't know if you'll agree with me, folks, but I think he's a bit of a child. And I know the way the Emperor's been presented in different versions of media forms of Dune, if you like. But I found him to be quite childish in this chapter. We'll get to it, I suppose. There's Rolando Sada saying, "Howdy, Doc." Howdy, Rolando. How you doing? Hope you're keeping well. And there's Connor saying, "Ahoy all." Hello, Connor. How you doing? Thanks very much for joining us, folks. Let's see. We're just into the second page, I think, really here. Third page. We're on 495. Just perimeter, the Emperor said. The word came out as though it puckered his mouth, just around there. So we're not too far in, folks. Of course, there's a sense of dramatic irony with this. Of course, you know, the Emperor going, they wouldn't dare attack, and we know otherwise. And the time shift from in the chapters, in this case, I suppose events from the previous chapter will, the detonation of the nuclear bomb will happen in this chapter. So they're not quite aligned, if you like. And so it's amusing for us to know that and at the same time, maybe makes us respect the Baron's abilities a little bit, that he's bang on here. I've got the people out on the perimeter in case the Fremen attack under cover of the storm. It's exactly what's going to happen. The Emperor doesn't even think they'll dream of doing this. They wouldn't even dare. And of course, the Baron strokes his ego a bit here, but surely not, Majesty. But error on the side of caution cannot be censored. And of course, interestingly enough, caution is a thing that we point out within this book, is that caution is supposed to be an Atreides trait. And I think the Baron's quite cautious. And of course, it's one of those things that if we do remember that Paul isn't really, well, I'm sure he's an Atreides, but we can also consider Paula Harkonnen as well. Occasionally think that maybe it's a trait that's associated with the Baron. He is cautious here. And the Emperor picks up on the word censured here. To censure something is to express, disapproval. You dislike something. It's a very formal way of doing it, I suppose. So the Emperor says, censure. Then I'm not to speak of how much time this Arrakis nonsense has taken from me. Not the Chosen Company profits pouring down this rat hole. Not the court functions and affairs of state that I've had to delay, even cancel, because of this stupid affair. Now, I've written next to this, just kind of for my own amusement, that all of this was his idea. Pretty much, The Emperor's behind the real plot. He's not happy with how things are going. So his language here, it's kind of it speaks of his temperament and I suppose his attitude towards this thing, and I think it's childish. But you'll see what if you agree with me. Not the Chosen Company profits, so that's money, and Arrakis nonsense. Profits pouring down this rat hole. So not a particular, this is the planet that makes him incredibly wealthy. But it's a rat hole to him. Not the court functions and affairs of state I've had to delay, balls and fancy dress parties and things like this, even cancel, because of this stupid affair. So nonsense, stupid, rat hole. And what's he missing out on? He's missing out on a few parties and, people bigging him up, this kind of thing, I think. So the Baron, we're told, lowered his gaze, frightened by the imperial anger. The delicacy of his position here, alone and dependent upon the convention and the dictum familia of the great houses, fretted him. And we get the Baron's thoughts here. Does he mean to kill me? He couldn't. Not with the other great houses waiting up there, aching for any excuse to gain from this upset on Arrakis. So the Baron's not too sure what's going on here. Now, let's see. Dictum familia and the convention. We had a wee chat about the convention last time. I've written down C terminology. Dictum familia. That'd be the word of the family. Let's see. Dictum. So in the terminology of the Imperium, so just to run over that again, the delicacy of his position here, alone and dependent upon the convention and the dictum familia of the great houses. So the terminology of the Imperium says that the dictum familia is that rule of the great convention, so it's a part of the convention, which prohibits the slaying of a royal person or member of a great house by informal treachery. Once again, so formal treachery would be okay if you read that way. It says the rule sets up the formal outline and limits the means of assassination. So it's another thing a bit like Canley, I suppose, that you're not allowed to kill the member of. How do we put it? Sorry, the rule prohibits the slaying of a royal person or member of a great house by informal treachery. And I suppose we could argue that Leto is murdered by formal treachery. The forms of Canley, I suppose, have been obeyed. Isn't that the way it's put? Dictum familia, I suppose, literally would mean from Latin. I suppose dictum is like the word of the family, or proverbs of the family, if you like, is what that would mean. Excuse me. I'll just get a sip of fluids and check up on your comments there, folks. Carlos is saying, it seems that the Harkonnen genes were more important to the breeding program than the Atreides, at least as far as the Bene Gesserit were concerned. I think so. I think they're equally important. There's Caravaggio. Thanks for joining us. Caravaggio says, an emperor can never show weakness, so maybe he's downplaying his concern with the Baron. Possibly, I think. It goes on a wee bit. I think what I was thinking on Caravaggio is that, as we see, it's his response. What's he going to do? And I've made wee notes each time he makes a particularly. In fact, it's the Emperor's threats, in particular later on when we get to them. Every time I've made a wee note, every time he does one, they're incredibly stupid threats. That's as far, yeah, I think they make sense within the plot, etc. But in terms of his character, what sort of person is he? You know, and I think he's a big Wayne, as we would say over here. He's a big child. He's going to have a tantrum or two in a minute. Pardon me. But Carlos, your point. I think the one thing that the Atreides name does, as I've pointed out, is it gives gravitas to this family, and it gives it a very, very ancient history. And I think that the longevity of the Atreides genes is one thing, but the Harkonnen's a big part of it. And the other thing about it is that the breeding program they're inbreeding within these families. I think that's the other important thing, that they've got to a point where it's not a healthy a desire to combine genes in a healthy way, that they're actually inbreeding certain traits to create the Kwisatz Haderach. So it's not exactly the healthiest of I suppose, breeding programs, is it? Let's see, where did we get to? Perimeter. Yes. So censure. So of course the Emperor, they won't dare attack, and the Baron surely not. But we should err on the side of caution. That can't be censored. But the Emperor picks up on this word censure, as we've said, and has a little bit of the Baron is not happy. So the Baron's anger is coming across here. It causes him to be afraid of the Imperial anger. He doesn't dare to kill. Does he mean to kill me? He couldn't, not without the other great houses waiting up there, aching for any excuse to gain from this upset on Arrakis. So the other thing I would say about this Caravaggio is that this, in terms of the Emperor here, and what we have with a lot of, almost everybody is looking to gain politically, socially, economically, etc., from this situation at the minute. All of the people here, not the major players, are looking to gain from this. And as I said, we'll see that the Emperor in a little bit, it's like he's wanting to just kick over the sand, the sandbox, if you like, kick over the sand castles, for nobody can play with them. And I'm not too sure how much he is serious. As you say, it's about showing weakness, maybe there's pretense here. And I wonder, is it a rehearsed moment, perhaps? So, the Emperor's next question here is, have you taken hostages? And the Baron says, it's useless, Majesty. These mad Fremen hold a burial ceremony for every captive, as though such a one were already dead. So I've made a wee note there, just to see the epigraph. The epigraph, as we were saying, is, I think, person-specific to Alia. As we go back, Muad'Dib stood before them and he said that we deem the captive dead, yet does she live. And of course, from Arrakis Awakening. But this is more specific to the, less specific, more talking about the Fremen in general. They hold a burial ceremony for every captive, as though the person basically is already dead. And the Emperor said, so the Baron waited, and glancing left and right, the metal walls of the Selamlik, thinking of the monstrous fan metal tent around him, such unlimited wealth it represented, that even the Baron was awed. And I've just put, this is just like Stilgar, this is the hutment. And the wealth obviously taken to build this thing is also the thing that awed Stilgar. And the Baron's thoughts here again on his situation. He's not in a good situation. He brings pages and useless court lackeys, his women and their companions. And I was wondering, folks, maybe somebody, I must do this myself, I thought that was a misprint there in the book, and my edition has lots of them. The word his woman there, I thought, was possibly a misprint. Let me just check. Let me see. Because I got a slightly different, but just his women, I thought, would have made more sense to me. Let me just see. Yes, it is. It's a misprint. Sorry, I've just looked in. I should have checked this before doing this. I mean, it's his women, according to my rather nice edition. Because I was wondering who on earth is the Emperor's woman. If you see what I mean. My text says women, his women. Yeah, thank you guys. Mine says women as well. Yeah, it's this edition's awful. It's such little things, isn't it? But it can change the meaning. It is his women. Sorry, thank you guys. Just wanted to check. So he brings pages and useless court lackeys, his women and their companions, hairdressers, designers, everything. All the fringe parasites of the court, all here fawning, slyly plotting, roughing it with the emperor, there to watch him put an end to this affair, to make epigrams over the battles and idolize the wounded. So it all sounds a bit, I know the idea of courts, if you like, and or suites in around royal courts, lackeys and all of this stuff. It still goes on in the UK. Quite appalling, I think. But there you go. All these, all these. The description there almost reminds me of, is it the occupants of the Bee Ark from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? This is the sort of people that are here: hairdressers and designers, etc. Excuse me. So the Emperor interrupts the Baron's thoughts again. Perhaps you've never sought the right kind of hostages. And the Baron's thoughts again here. He knows something. What's going on? Fear sat like a stone in his stomach until he could hardly bear the thought of eating. And there's our Baron with his the food thing. And I've just written down tension here is building. And yet the feeling was like hunger. And we're told he poised himself several times. Hang on. Is that he raised himself? That's my handwriting again. Oh, we're over the page. Sorry about this, folks. He poised. My handwriting's not that bad. He poised himself several times in his suspensors on the point of ordering food brought to him, but there was no one here to obey his summons. So the Baron's in a bit of a bind, as they would say. And he's almost scared enough that he can hardly bear the thought of eating, but still he's thinking about it. And the Emperor says, "Do you have any idea who this Muad'Dib could be?" The Baron's reply here is, "One of the Ummah, surely. A Fremen fanatic, a religious adventurer. They crop up regularly on the fringes of civilization. Your Majesty knows this." Ummah, in this case, is in the terminology of the Imperium. This term. So this is what Muad'Dib is. He's Ummah. He's one of the Ummah. Based on our reading from the book, let's just get it there. Ummah is one of the Brotherhood of Prophets. And it says in brackets, a term of scorn in the Imperium, meaning any wild person given to fanatical prediction. So it's not a good term. He's like a wild man, a wild prophet, a wild sage, if you like. However, we note here that the word Ummah in Arabic means nation or peoples. That comes from Khaled Bahildon's page. So one of the Ummah, one of the nation, one of the people is I suppose, the literal way you could look at it. But in this case, the way the Baron's using it's a derogatory term. He's a mad religious adventurer. Yeah. And we're told the emperor glanced at his truthsayer and then turned back to scowl at the Baron. And you have no knowledge of this Muad'Dib. And the Baron again, a madman. But all Fremen are a little mad. And the emperor goes, mad? And the Baron says, his people scream his name as they leap into battle. The women throw their babies at us and hurl themselves onto our knives to open a wedge for their men. Pardon me, for their men to attack us. They have no decency. And the emperor goes, as bad as that, murmured. And his tone of derision did not escape the Baron. Now, I've just put, I'm going to nip out here a wee quick second, folks, and run to the way, but I've just put a little skull, as we like to do, for the Fremen babies and their Fremen women who do this kind of thing. There's examples of this kind of behavior in history as well, interestingly enough. But yes, indeed. Bear with me a wee second, folks. I'm going to quickly run to the route. I'll be right back. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Nature calls. Oh, dear. His women and my God, my text says women, it says women. A dirty telephone receiver. Yes, indeed. Telephone sanitation. People. If anybody's not sure about the reference we were talking about, that the people in the Emperor's suite here, his court, if you like, their professions are reminiscent of the people who are put on the B Arc and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, all telephone sanitation engineers and hairdressers and this kind of thing. All the useless people. It's just very much reminded me of that. So there you go, Connor. So there we are, folks. Sorry about that. But yes, indeed, a nice picture of the Fremen in battle here. Women and babies and it all. So the Emperor, I thought his response was as bad as that. Tone of derision. Now, let's see. Tell me, my dear Baron, have you investigated the southern polar region? Sorry, the southern polar regions of Arrakis. And the Baron stared up at the Emperor, shocked by this change of subject. And again, there's a wee bit of we're all in on this. We know what's going on, if you like, in this chapter. We're a bit better informed than the Baron is, but maybe equally as well informed as the Emperor. No, I'd say we're better informed than the Emperor, aren't we? So the Baron's reply here is, but, well, Your Majesty, the entire region is uninhabitable, open to wind and worm. There's not even any spice in those latitudes. You've had no reports from spice lighters that patches of greenery appear there? Asks the Emperor. And the Baron replies, there's always been such reports. Some were investigated long ago. A few plants were seen. Many thopters were lost. Much too costly, Your Majesty. It's a place where men cannot survive for long. So, the Emperor says, snaps his fingers. That was a terrible snap of the fingers. There we go. That was better. And okay, so here we go. The emperor snapped his fingers and the door opened at his left behind the throne, and through the door came two Sardaukar, herding a girl child who appeared to be about 4 years old. She wore a black abba, hood thrown back to reveal the attachment of a stillsuit hanging free at her throat. Her eyes were Fremen blue, staring out of a soft, round face. She appeared completely unafraid, and there was a look to her stare that made the Baron feel uneasy for no reason he could explain. This is a great entrance, isn't it? Even the old Bene Gesserit truthsayer drew back as the child passed and made a warning sign in her direction. The old witch obviously was shaken by the child's presence. So this kid is walking in here, escorted by two of the Emperor's elite soldiers. She's got attitude. The Baron immediately, what is this? Feels uneasy for no reason. The Bene Gesserit truthsayer drawing back, making signs. And this is a 4-year-old child, where it appears to be 4. I always thought Ali's about 3 at this point. The Emperor clear. So it's an excellent entrance. And the Emperor cleared his throat to speak, but the child spoke first. Thin voice over traces of a soft palate lisp, but clear nonetheless. And this is Alia's introduction here. So here she goes. She's, so here he is, and advances to the edge of the dais. He doesn't appear much, does he? One frightened old fat man, too weak to support his own flesh without the help of suspensors. I love this. So the response here is the Baron, such a totally unexpected statement from the mouth of a child that the Baron stared at her, speechless in spite of his anger. And the Baron's thought is it a midget? He asks himself. My dear Baron, become acquainted with the sister of Muad'Dib. So here we have Alia arrive. We know of Alia, of course, already, but this chapter, I think, is really where she absolutely comes into her own here. And I'll just have a look. Cynthia's got a comment there. In this scene, the Baron is more alone than we have ever seen him. Absolutely. No counselors, no family members, no food, inadequate background intelligence, no bodyguards. Contrast this to the aloneness of Alia. Yes, indeed. And I was kind of saying that there's little, and particularly with the Baron here, I suppose we do consider the Baron to be a relative here, but did I just draw that? I had a little, yeah, we have Alia with, I suppose if we think of the two men and the two women in this, I suppose Alia and Mohiam, and then the Baron and the Emperor, thinking about those kind of Jungian mandalas and how you would position them against each other and so on. And I suppose the Baron being a part of that, but the way I looked at it is he's separate as well in this, Cynthia, in a kind of, unless we do consider him, I suppose, a family member, but this is Alia with arguably her two grandparents, two of them anyway. That we know the Baron's the grand. We don't know for certain within this book that Bohème is the grandmother, but I think there's enough clues. I know it's presented that way in other books, and I think there's enough clues to go with that, But yes, indeed, and he's all alone, looking for everything around him. Alia is all alone and completely assured. And I suppose it goes. There's also the Alia's. I mean, how we can compare almost everybody, all the main characters in this room, with Alia in a sense, if you like. But Alia's confidence versus the Emperor's confidence, if you see what I mean. Her power versus the Bene Gesserit power, and her the cat. There's a bit of cat and mouse, I think, in this as well. I made a couple of wee notes about it, I think. But yes, indeed, it is. It's a very good, and of course the contrast. If you think about it, I'm sure some of you have seen the photographs from the David Lynch Dune movie of the actors that plays little Alia and the Baron just kind of chilling, and the difference in the size between the two, one being small and grounded, the other one huge and floating up in the air. The male female contrast as well, which we're going to see a bit of here. And yeah, but it's a great entrance. And the build up of, I suppose, the Emperor's laying a trap here. And he's checking the Emperor's, or sorry, he's checking the Baron's words here, really, with Mohiam being his truth sayer. He's trying to get to the truth of things, but it is a little bit of a trap, and the reveal of this trap is in comes Alia. So, and of course, the child speaks first, and it's quite menacing, isn't it? So here he is. And he doesn't appear that much. It's very insulting. He doesn't appear much, does he? This kind of rhetorical tone. One frightened old fat man. And her assessment is pretty good here. He's a frightened old fat man, and he is too weak to support his own flesh. Without the help of his suspensors, we could overlay that on top of it. He's too weak here in his political position. He's in real danger, and he should know it. But the child makes him angry, and he's still politicking. I think he's still manoeuvring here, the Baron. So, of course, my dear Baron, become acquainted with the sister of Muad'Dib. The Baron, the sister. We're told, shifted his attention to the Emperor. I do not understand. And he's still not following this. I, too, sometimes err on the side of caution. It has been reported to me that your uninhabited South Polar regions exhibit evidence of human activity. And we talked about this the previous chapter, of course, that as much as Paul saying they won't act until, etc., etc., the Emperor has acted independently and is demonstrating, I suppose, caution. And again, this that we're always told is an Atreides trait could actually probably just be considered a common sense thing within this universe. Other people can have this trait as well. Again, it makes us think about the Atreides, the Carino, and the Harkonnens, and how closely they're related genetically, this kind of thing. Excuse me. So, of course, the Baron protested, but that's impossible. The worms, they're sand clear to the... these people seem able to avoid the worms, interrupts the Emperor. And we're told, and again, I just love everything Alia does in this chapter. The way the character's constructed, the way she acts, moves, speaks, etc. So we're told that she sat down on the dais beside the throne, dangled her feet over the edge, kicking them. There was an air of sureness in the way she appraised her surroundings. And the Baron stared at at the kicking feet, the way they moved, the black robe, the wink of sandals beneath the fabric. Oh, there's a Noodles trying to get in. You alright, Noodles? Oh, I think my wife's doing a Noodles intercept. So Noodles tends to scratch at the door a fair bit. It always sounds a bit quite creepy. So, yeah, very much acting like you get a little kid kicking her feet over the edge, feet in the water of a pool or something like that, just swinging their feet, playing and being a child, I suppose. The air of sureness in the way she appraised her surroundings. And the Baron stared at the kicking feet, the way they moved, the black robe, the wink of sandals beneath the fabric. And the Emperor says, unfortunately, I only sent 5 troop carriers with a light attack force to pick up prisoners for questioning. We barely got away with 3 prisoners and 1 carrier. Mind you, Baron, my Sardaukar were almost overwhelmed by a force composed mostly of women, children, and old men. The child here was in command of one of the attacking groups. Excuse me. And of course, the Baron goes, "You see, Your Majesty? You see how they are?" And I think again, that's quite fun. I like that little moment there, that this little child is the commander. This child is in command of one of the attacking groups that have wiped out an awful lot of Sardaukar. So the Sardaukar get their little skull here, as usual, and I've just gone almost 5 carriers of Sardaukar, if you like, 5 troop carriers worth. And of course, the Baron, I think his response is quite funny here. You see, Your Majesty, you see how they are? They're mad, they're dangerous. And Ali, of course, interrupts. And again, she's very, very spooky. If you think about it in terms of psychologically what Alia would be doing to the people in this room, I think would be quite incredible. I allowed myself to be captured. I did not want to face my brother and have to tell him that his son had been killed. And the Emperor saying, only a handful of our men got away. Got away! You hear that? So it's not, it's been a slaughter fest. And Alia says, we'd have had them too, except for the flames. Yeah, there's something very sinister about Alia. I think we've all seen films like this, haven't we? With the like demonic children, this kind of thing. Or particularly, I suppose it's almost a Hollywood trope, isn't it? That it's the child who is scarily wise beyond their years, this kind of thing. I don't know if I know. Yeah. And Connor's saying Alia is playing Shaddam. She is. I think. Oh, this is. There's theater going on here. I think. She is indeed. She's manipulating the whole situation. And again, what sight Alia has of this? What foreknowledge, if you like? We have to wonder about. But she's absolutely playing Shaddam. She's messing with them badly, I think. And she's almost here as an assassin in this chapter, I think. And she is putting the fear of Muad'Dib into them as well. But ultimately it's a way, if she's being completely honest here, it's a way of it's a way of avoiding her brother and explaining that Leto's dead. This is why she's doing this. It is interesting how much of this is planned. But nonetheless, Alia is in front of the Emperor before her brother is. I think this is another interesting thing to consider. And especially in light of what's going to happen shortly, we could also assume that Alia could very easily dispatch the Emperor here, which is a thing that we maybe wonder why not. No, political probably. So Alia says we'd have had them too, except for the flames. And the Emperor says, my Sardaukar used the attitudinal jets on their carrier as flamethrowers, a move of desperation, and the only thing that got them away with their 3 prisoners. Mark that, my dear Baron. Sardaukar forced to retreat in confusion from women and children and old men. The Baron rasped, we must attack in force. We must destroy every last vestige of. Silence, roared the Emperor, and pushed himself forward on his throne. Excuse me. Do not abuse my intelligence any longer. You stand there in your foolish innocence and... Oh, excuse me. Mohiam goes, Majesty! And the old truthsayer said, sorry, I needed to colour something in here that I don't. In my notebook. There we go. Oops. So, very interesting there. Do not abuse my intelligence any longer. You stand there in your foolish innocence. And he's cut off for this by Mohiam. And simply put, Majesty is what she says. And he waves her to silence. But I think at this point he said too much. And the key words there are foolish innocence. And if we're looking at any kind of legal, any kind of legal conclusion to all of this affair, who's to blame? The Emperor just here now said publicly in front of his court that the Baron was his foolish innocence. He said that the Baron was innocent just there now. And that's why Mohiam, I think, interrupts him here with Majesty. And I think it's, you've said too much. No, he waves her to silence. Again to the Baron, you say you don't know about the activity we find, nor the fighting qualities of these superb people. And he lifted himself up off his throne. What do you take me for, Baron? And the Baron 2 steps backwards, thinking, it was Ruban. He's done this to me. Ruban has this thing cut off again, and this fake dispute with Duke Leto. And the phrase here is, I think, very important, folks. Let me just read this from the book rather than my notes, just to make sure it's probably the same. And this fake dispute with Duke Leto. All right. The Emperor purred, sinking back into his throne. How beautifully you maneuvered it. That, and this fake dispute with Duke Leto purred, sinking back in his throne. How beautifully you maneuvered it. And the Baron pleads here, Majesty, what are you? And another silence from the Emperor here. Now, there's all sorts going on here. And basically, how do I put it? The Emperor's kind of accidentally said out loud that the Baron is innocent, if you like. It's enough for, I think, the Baron to be able to use it, but he's not bothered about it. He doesn't believe that the Baron doesn't know anything about the activities, the fighting qualities of the Fremen. The Emperor calls them superb people. Superb, meaning, I suppose, in that sense, above. But what do you take me for? The fake dispute with Duke Leto, the Emperor is involved in that, and is purred, sinking back in this. How beautifully you maneuvered it. You did that. The Baron probably, again, so we know the truth here. We know that the Emperor is involved in this. And I suppose the Baron pleaded, Majesty, what are you? And he's shut up. And I think the Emperor, trying to control the Baron and how he speaks to a degree here, is almost trying to put him into a certain position. There's a bit of politicking going on here, a bit of the blame game, and I think Shaddam slipped up there when he used the words foolish innocence. It's an odd thing to say to somebody, isn't it? The treaty's gone, Jabbar. Yes, indeed, Connor. Caravaggio says, Alia seems to have a rebellious streak from the very start. Yes, there's something, I don't know, there's something joyous in the chaos in this chapter, but she's definitely having fun with it, I think. And this if Alia was meant to be originally in the south, as Paul had intended with Leto, and that's where she's been, I don't think this was part of the plan. But as I said, Alia is somehow in front of here she is in front of her enemies. And we're going to see what she does in a minute or two, but it is interesting. And again, we've talked a wee bit about this, that there are characters here, what I like to call incredibly dangerous babies, for want of a better word. And that they do turn up here and there in science fiction and so on. They're not all dangerous, but they're interesting characters. Joe Kidd is one I'm particularly fond of. Is a pilot from Robo Hunter, isn't he? He regresses as just a very foul-mouthed, cigar-smoking baby. Not quite on the same thing here, but Ali is a great character here, I think, and the way she's very well written. You could go completely over the top with this, couldn't you? And make her seem a lot more than what she is, and she is a lot more than what she is, I suppose, in saying that. But it's the way that she's written is pretty menacing, but quite. I think this is fun for the reader. We're at this point where we're going to see things happen in this chapter, but it's fun to think of it. It's not all these big hard men, these heroes that we've been looking at. That's here, causing this level of this level of worry and fear and stress in the imperial household. It's a little child, and of course Ali is not a child, but she is, and I think that's of course her tragedy, isn't it? So this is another big silence. The old Bene Gesserit put a hand on the Emperor's shoulder, leaned close to whisper in his ear again, and the child seated on the dais stopped kicking her feet. Make him afraid some more, Shaddam. I shouldn't enjoy this, but I find the pleasure impossible to suppress. And again, if you put it with the child's voice, with again, we're told with the soft palate lisp, Make him a friend. Make him afraid some more, Shaddam. I shouldn't enjoy it. Just a kid saying I shouldn't enjoy this, but I find the pleasure impossible to suppress. Now, there's also something about that statement is it's a little bit reminding me of the last description of Paul, the chuckling of the hands in the previous chapter. She's enjoying this. Make him afraid some more. I want to, more. And I think it also kind of echoes what Gurney said in the previous chapter about killing all these Harkonnen, but sending them to hell on Shriven. Isn't that I want them. They should suffer more. And I very much. This is the Atreides Gob Jabbar at work. All right, as Connor was saying there. Sorry. And she does indeed seem to have a rebellious streak from the very start. Rolando saying, "Sorry if it's a delay statement, but I never realized that is how old his grandparents. That's interesting. Thank you ever so much, Doc." No worries, Rolando. Tara says, "I've got to catch my bus. Y'all have a good night. No worries, Babs. Be safe and catch you again. Take care." Bojack saying good night and all the best. Good night from Connor there to Telios. So look after yourself, Babs. See you next time. Not to worry about that, Rolando. Sorry, let me just catch your statement again, Rolando. If it's a delay statement, but I never realized yet is how old his grandparent. Yeah, I think the idea that the Baron being the grandparent here, yes, the Reverend Mother isn't for certain in this book. I think it's a thing that appears. I think it's a thing that's finally sort of set in stone in the Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson books. But if we look at the behavior of Mohiam at the start of the book, I think there's a maternal aspect to her and towards Jessica and towards Paul. So I've always thought it makes sense. I know that that's where they went, but it does make perfect sense that Mohiam is the other grandparent in this case, if you like. Or Paul and Alia's grandmother. Yeah, make him afraid some more, Shaddam. I shouldn't enjoy this, but I find the pleasure impossible to suppress. It's just a delicious, quite evil sounding statement. And again, it's how you imagine Alia in your mind, if you like, when you're reading this. We've seen her on the TV, etc., in the cinema, but and very much how Alia appeared in David Lynch's Dune is very much how I think of Alia. I thought that was a fantastic performance. The way they did her character was brilliant, and the actress was as a child actress was exceptional. Alia in David Lynch Dune is something else, isn't she? Of course, she ends the film with her speech, isn't it? The last line. So the Emperor's doing a lot of silencing and quieting. He does it again, quiet child. And he leaned forward and put a hand on her head and stared at the Baron. Is it possible, Baron? Could you be as simple-minded as my truth-sayer suggests? Do you not recognize this child, daughter of your ally, Duke Leto? And of course, Alia picks up on this. My father was never his ally. My father is dead, and this old Harkonnen beast has never seen me before. And again, that's there's as much as the Baron. We're amused at the Baron here. The Baron's a dangerous creature, and he is being openly mocked here, both by this child and by the Emperor. Foolish innocence, simple-minded, etc., etc. And of course, Alia, my father was never his ally. My father is dead, and this old Harkonnen beast has never seen me before. Very, very cold, threatening language, I think. And the effect on the Baron is he's reduced to stupefied glaring. When he found his voice, we're told he was only able to rasp, "Who?" And of course, he says, "I am Alia, daughter of Duke Leto and the Lady Jessica, sister of Duke Paul Muad'Dib." And she pushed herself off the dais and dropped to the floor of the audience chamber. "My brother has promised your head atop his battle standard, and I think he shall." Once again, this little kid is telling, "I'm going to have your head." You know, it's just brilliant, and I think Herbert does a great job of painting the picture of this whole chapter. And Alia has the right amount of menace and the right amount of innocence, I think. Be hush, child. And the Emperor sank back into his throne, hand the chin, studying the Baron. It's almost a bit like this sort of conversation that's been going on, this three-way thing between the Baron, Alia, and the Emperor. It's almost would remind you of the gunfight in the graveyard at the end of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, that kind of thing, For he is the Kwisatz Haderach, says Connor. Caravaggio says, great performance, really, given, I can't see it because of the wee thing in the way there. Really did the character justice. The Alia, yes. What's the actress's name? Is it, oh, I can't remember. Is it Alicia? Is it something like that? Alicia. Is that who I'm thinking of? Who played Alia? Yeah. Yeah, that's her. Alicia Witt is the actress. There you go. A very, very, wow performance as a child actress. Incredible. She's in Twin Peaks too. Oh, thanks, Connor. I've only just started watching Twin Peaks with my wife. We've just watched the first series of it, and we're about to start the second series. So there you go. We're getting our David Lynch on at the minute. So there you go. I never saw Twin Peaks when it was on the first time around. I'm a fan of a lot of David Lynch films, but I never saw it. I was working, sadly, so I never got to see it. I, got the kind of cultural phenomenon that it was, the music and all of that, and a cup of coffee and a slice of damn fine American pie, this kind of thing. Season 2 is a bit rough. It's a lot longer, isn't it? We haven't started it yet. But we'll give it a go. But yeah, quite a few actors from Dune in it as well, isn't there? But I've enjoyed it so far. I do like David Lynch stuff. I haven't seen much of his. No, I think we did this conversation a wee while back. I actually have seen an awful lot of his films. It's just like the most recent ones. But he did that thing with the monkey. I thought was fantastic on Netflix. If I can remember the name of it, I'll give you a while back, and I loved it so much. I must watch it again. Let me see if I can just get the name of it. The thing I'm thinking on. Razorhead. There we go. Yeah, we were thinking about watching The Elephant Man the other night, which I love. I find it hard to watch. It's just end up in tears at the end of it. It's very sad, but it's a very good film. Here we go. Let me see if I can figure out the name of the thing. Other work. No, I don't see it. I don't know. It's kind of him like interrogating a monkey, and it's on, and he's acting in it. If you see what I mean, I can't remember for the life of me what you call it, and I can't see it here on. Here at all on Wikipedia. Sorry, folks. Let me see. Elephant Man is the best. It's a great film. There's a fish in his percolator. The percolator. There's a fish in the percolator. Very good. Elephant Man is really good. Yes. June areas are him, but the first time I watched the Elephant Man was very late at night. Kind of one of those you've got yourself into bed with a kind of mug of hot chocolate, and it's like a late Saturday night, and you're just watching something before you go to sleep. And I watched that. It was with the light off and very atmospheric. And yeah, it's an extremely good film. Extremely good. It's based on a true story. Of course, isn't it? John Merrick's the real name, isn't it? Is James Merrick, I think. I think he's John Merrick in the film, I think. What did Jack do? Thank you, Caravaggio. That David Lynch's What Did Jack Do? That's it. If anybody hasn't seen it, that's what I was talking about with the monkey. It's really, really good. It's very short. I think it's only about 20 minutes long or something. And if anybody wants to check it out, I recommend it. It's a bit film noir, and the way the monkey talks it's really, it's very David Lynch. It's very, very good, very enjoyable. There we go. Just getting sidetracked a wee bit into David Lynch, but we do love the David Lynch version of Dune, I have to say. But yes, my brother's promised your head atop his battle standard, and I think he shall. I think he's going to have it. Be hush, child. Again, the Emperor, a lot of his movements in this chapter is kind of leaning forward in the seat and then back and forth, if you see what I mean. Whereas Alia sort of moves around the room, seats herself, moves about. It's almost like she's controlling the room. And of course, she replies to him, "I do not take the Emperor's orders." And she turned to look up at the old Reverend Mother. She knows. And this is about to get worse for these people here, I suppose. The Emperor glanced up at the truthsayer. And the Emperor says, What does she mean? And Mohiam says, "This child is an abomination. Her mother deserves a punishment greater than anything in history. Death. It cannot come too quickly for that child or for the one who spawned her." And she pointed a finger at Alia. "Get out of my mind." And the Emperor's response is whispered. It's TP, or Teep, if you like, telepath. He snapped his attention back to Alia. "By the Great Mother." So he thinks his response here is to what Alia is doing is that "get out of my mind." This statement from Gaius Helen Mohiam makes the Emperor think that Alia is a telepath. Mohiam's words here, we're going to become much more familiar with this term, is that the child is an abomination. So abomination is going to be a big part of Alia's story. And of course, Leto and Ganon is later, the idea that the Atreides, Kwisatz Haderachs being abominations, if you like. And that I suppose is responsible for another evolutionary leap. It's a term of derision. It's a derogatory term. Abomination with a big exclamation mark. Her mother deserves a punishment greater than anything in history, which is kind of interesting. You kind of get that attitude lined up sometimes with Helen of Troy, if you see what I mean, that her causing more her punishment should be, and that would kind of line up a little bit with Jessica. Death is the punishment. It cannot come too quickly for that child or for the one who spawned her. So death to that kid and her mother, and then get out of my mind. TP, by the Great Mother. Again, another little reference to the religious attitudes of the Imperium. And it's going to be interesting whenever we get to the appendices, where we are told that generally the attitude of the Imperium and the Great House is that they're mostly agnostic. Religion's a tool. They don't really know whether to believe it or not. That kind of thing. So Mohiam says, "You don't understand, Majesty. Not telepathy. She's in my mind. She's like the ones before me, the ones who gave me their memories. She stands in my mind. She cannot be there, but she is." Okay, questions. First of all, she's like the ones before me, the ones who gave me their memories. So this is the Bene Gesserit in other, all the women who are in other memory, within the Bene Gesserit other memory. She's in my mind. She's like the ones before me, like the ones who gave me their memories. But the indication is there that she's not the same. She stands in my mind. She cannot be there. So Alia hasn't died. She hasn't passed on her memories of death to another sister. The point, she is. And again, this starts to raise questions about Alia. She cannot be there, but she is. What does this mean is what I've asked. And I suppose where we do have Paul being a Kwisatz Haderach, it's possible to consider Alia as the opposite of that. But it becomes quite tricky. And I suppose ultimately Alia is something slightly different than Paul. And one of the things that about Alia's character, of course, it is tragic, is if we do consider that, and then we consider Leto the Second and Ganima afterwards, the really, I suppose, it does question that Alia had real potential here to be something more than the brother, I think. But there's a bit of mystery to it. I suppose I'm just speculating. I'm very fond of this character, and ultimately Alia's path as a literary character is ultimately tragic, but it's incredibly. It depends on how you look at these things, but it's incredibly satisfying to me as a reader to see a character develop that way. And she reminds me a little bit of Titus Groan at this point in the book, where I suppose Titus is only a couple of years of age at the end of the first book. She's a little kid here, and she appears to be 4. I think she's 3. Quite frankly, I think she's younger than the books appear trying to make her out to be. But she's in my mind, is what the Reverend Mother says. The Emperor's saying, well, what others? What is this nonsense? And the old woman straightened and lowered her pointing hand. And Mohiam said, I've said too much, but the fact remains that this child, who is not a child, must be destroyed. Long were we warned against such a one, and how to prevent such a birth, but one of our own has betrayed us. So if we break down what she's saying here, basically long ago somebody warned us about this. That beggars the question, by who and why? And I suppose we'll ultimately get to this. This the big mystery at the very end of June, isn't it? But we'll get there one day. Is ultimately that the Bene Gesserit aren't really running this the way that they think they are. And it's something that Frank drops on us later on, right at the end of this book. And not even in part of the story at all, interestingly enough. So there'll be problems in trying to think of this later on, I suppose, but Alia is in the female other memory at this point. And her response here I'm guessing is cultivated. It's part of the missionary protect, part of all of the illusions and deceits that the Bene Gesserit put up about themselves. But she says, I've said too much. It's the second time I think that I think the foolish innocence thing, and she's going majesty, that's an example of the Emperor saying too much. She's just nearly revealed a major secret of the Bene Gesserit here. Or, well, she pretty much has revealed it, if anybody could put the pieces together. I've said too much. That's also admitting, oh, have you? What does that mean? You've said too much. You must have, what else have you got to say on the subject would make us wonder about it? I haven't seen it myself. Likewise, we'll do. Yeah. What did Jack do? It'll take you a few minutes to watch. It's really good. Shaddam seems more interested in telepathy than he is in his empire. Yeah, Shaddam's off here, I think. I don't know. We'll see what you think when we get to the end of it. It's also a who was it was saying earlier that we can contrast. Let me back up here. Cynthia said in this scene the Baron is more alone than we had ever seen him. No counselors, no family members, no food, inadequate background intel. Contrast this to the aloneness of Alia. What I would also be going further with that, I would contrast Alia's language and actions in this chapter as a child compared to the grown-up in the room, the figure of authority. And of course, Alia, somebody pointed out there, let me just back up and give credit where credit's due. Caravaggio saying Alia seems to have a rebellious streak right from the very start. There is something very rebellious here. And it's be hush, child, says the Emperor. I don't take the Emperor's orders. She knows. So he tells her to shush. No. It's basically, no, I won't. She's defiant here. As far as she's amusing, I think. She's slightly formal, She's to the point. She's factual. She is intimidating. She's threatening, and she is being deceptive as well. Here, you're somebody again. We point out she's playing this situation here, and again that probably with other memory, foresight, prescience, etc. She is well armed, if you like. So there's little things here that are quite odd and quite important, I think, about how we think about them. I've said too much. The fact remains the child who's not a child, the child who is not a child. And I'm kind of just thinking, well, the emperor is not really a grown up to me in this. We'll see why in shortly. Must be long ago were we warned against such a one and how to prevent such a birth, but one of our own has betrayed us. Long ago we were warned by who. So Alia's response is, it seems that what Mohiam is saying here is nonsense. You babble, old woman. You don't know how it was, yet you rat. Now, I think, is this another possible spelling mistake or misprint here? You rattle on like a purblind fool. I was just wondering, was it prattle? Possibly there. 3 do. Yeah, I've got rattle. I thought it might be prattle. Personally, you've got rattle here too. Yeah, sometimes it's maybe just me thinking a word would be better. Prattle might be better there. Thank you, Connor. Yes, you babble, old woman. You don't know how it was, yet you rattle on like a purblind fool. And that's kind of interesting. You don't know how it was. You're making this up. And then Alia closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and held it. And the old Reverend Mother groaned and staggered. And Alia opened her eyes. That is how it was. A cosmic accident. And you played your part in it. And again, this is all mysterious to us. What's this about? And again, it's a contradiction. She's contradicted what Mohiam has said. Long ago, we were warned against. Who warned you? You talk nonsense, old woman. That's not what happened. And she says it was a cosmic accident and you played your part in it. The Reverend Mother, we're told, held out both hands, palms pushing the air towards Alia. And the Emperor demanded, what is happening here? Child, can you truly project your thoughts into the mind of another? So he's already been told, he's said telepathy, and the response from Mohiam was, you don't understand, Majesty, not telepathy. So he's being told no, and he doesn't listen. Can you truly project your thoughts into the mind of another? Again, Alia will correct him here. That's not how it is at all. Unless I'm born as you, I cannot think as you. So I suppose that's really the male-female separation here. The female line of the Bene Gesserit, the male line of the Kwisatz Haderach, if you like, which I think includes the female line. So if Alia is the opposite, I think of Paul, that would be, I suppose the female line is openly available to her as a female, but it would mean that the male line is open to her as well. Which, as I said, whenever it gets to later on with her, with the Baron Harkonnen being in her mind, that causes all sorts of problems. So there are issues with this stuff, and I think it's why it's worth to pay attention to little things that are said. A lot of these things are not, they're not wrapped up for us. Frank's got lots of little threads that he will wrap up and take us on little journeys with him, and they'll have a reasonable conclusion or place in the story, but others are just left to drift and make us wonder. And it's very mysterious that Alia knows something more to be truer in the past, even with the Reverend Mother's other memory of all of these women. She's still not got it right, or else she's lying. But but Alia's educating her here. There's some sort of communication, but Alia's inside It's not telepathy. She's already inside Mohiam's mind. She's physically there, in a sense. So it's not how it is. Unless I'm born as you, I cannot think as you. If I'm female, I cannot think as a man. If I'm a male, I cannot think as a female, I suppose, is the suggestion from that. It goes back to the giving and taking discussion within the book. So Mohiam again, kill her, the old man muttered, the old woman muttered, and clutched at the back of the throne for support. Kill her! The sunken old eyes glared at Alia. And again, this is the power behind the throne, if you like, demanding this child be killed. Is that the third time she says to kill her? Death is the first one. I don't understand. She must be destroyed. Yeah, kill her. So Mohiam's pretty insistent about killing Alia here. The Emperor again, another silence. And he studied Alia. Child, can you communicate with your brother? And Alia says, my brother knows I'm here. Can you tell him to surrender as the price of your life? And Alia smiled up at him with clear innocence. I shall not do that. The Baron stumbled forward to stand beside Alia. Majesty, I knew nothing of, he pleaded. And the Emperor turns to him and says, interrupt me once more, Baron, and you will lose the powers of interruption forever. He kept his attention focused on Alia, studying her through slitted lids. We're getting a lot of, oddly enough, I was kind of pointing out something I will point out, hands and eyes within this chapter. We kind of had a shadow and light thing going on. Look of a predatory bird. I've been drawing lots of little pictures of eyes. Eyes down. So eyes motifs in this quite a fair bit. There you go. If you can see what I mean. There you go. Doing this kind of thing. just little visual indicators for myself. So I shall not do that, Majesty. So interrupt me one more time, and I'll basically kill you. You will not, says the Emperor to Alia. Can you read in my mind what I'll do if you disobey me? So once again, so this is the third time. This will be the third time. I've already said I cannot read minds. So, but one doesn't need telepathy to read your intentions. So it does seem like the Emperor's fixating a bit on this telepathy thing, isn't it? I find him quite juvenile, unless he does not listen. That's the first thing we can get from this. If we're following the Emperor's attitude and his behavior and his word, and this is the most powerful man in the universe, we're led to believe. I think very much almost he is very much childish, I think, in this. He's fixating on this. He's been told 3 times. This is the third. I've already said I can't read minds. How many times do you need to tell? But one doesn't need telepathy to read your intentions. And the Emperor scowled. Child, your cause is hopeless. I have but to rally my forces and reduce this planet to... And that's threat number 1. Okay, so there we go. I was talking about childish threats from the Emperor. And I actually just had to scribble that down. Let me get maybe... Oh, highlighter pens. There we go. So, I'm sure we all have a fair understanding at this point of the economy of the Imperium. Your cause is hopeless. I have but to rally my force and reduce this planet to... And I've written next to this, would he? I'm pretty sure that the answer is he wouldn't be allowed to. It would, if I suppose the way I would put it is this, I will see how this travels on within this after this chapter. But the Emperor's threats here would get him killed. I think. I think he would be removed from power, and if it would be the guild that would kill him. So his threats here are to destroy the planet, um, which would be really, really bad. From that threat alone, I would say, now whether it's him being angry and it's hyperbolic rage, this kind of nonsense that people are prone to do when they're miffed, could be one thing. But is it really just I'm the most powerful? I can just end you all by blowing up the planet. Um, and it's one of those things when we get to kind of galactic empire stories and future war and this kind of thing, that generally we do have to consider that the ground troop is the soldier on the ground is pretty useless when you can just blow up his planet or blow up his star. But it is a threat here. All I have to do is rally my phone, reduce this planet to. I'll point them out as they keep happening. But Ali's response is it's not that simple, and it isn't. And she looked at the two guildsmen and says, "Ask them." So Ali is more astute here than the Emperor. But the emperor really, if that's the way his response to this situation would be to blow the planet up and end all these Fremen and all of this nonsense be done with, sod the spice. He wouldn't. He's not aware of the consequences of that to himself. That if he has a spice, he is a person who uses spice, he would die, and so would most of everybody who uses it, pretty much. So his threat here is one that would. And Alia says it's not that simple. Ask them. The guild would not let this happen, I think, and it does put the emperor into a certain light here. You start to sort of look at him as more of a kind of sun king, kind of one of these French foppish kings, this kind of thing. The Louis. So that threat, so the question's asked: would he do it? Could he do it? And would the guild let him? Would everybody else act against him for this? If this emperor decided, I'm going to blow up this planet that everyone's so dependent on, and everybody's surrounding at this moment, looking for an opportunity to seize power or wealth. So the emperor says, it's not wise to go against my desires. You should not deny me the least thing. I'll just write next to this, laughing out loud. He's a bit of a prat, isn't he? So somebody made a point about about emperors there a wee while back. I'm quite familiar with a range of emperors. An emperor can never show weakness, so maybe he's downplaying his concern with the Baron. Emperors do all sorts of things, but he's showing vanity, stupidity, ignorance, and my desires. I get what I want, and it's that kind of. And whenever we flip that in terms of look at the Fremen, the hardship of life where you have to eke out your very existence, compared to the person at the other end of your universal society, this guy at the top of things, he doesn't seem to be well informed at all of the situation, even just the nature of the threat politically, and it's why he's here. So I think it really that he looks at it in terms of salaries, in terms of money, but can't see to the core of what generates that money, if you like. Not wise to go against my desires. Very childish. My brother comes now. Even an emperor may tremble before Muad'Dib, for he has the strength of righteousness, and heaven smiles upon him. Again, there we go. There's a corresponding threat, if you like. And again, this has it's pretty biblical, isn't it? It's very religious. Even an emperor may tremble before Muad'Dib. The strength of righteousness, heaven smiles upon him. It works. It gets it. And again, this emperor is easily provoked here, I think. He surged to his feet. This play has gone far enough. I will take your brother and this planet and grind them to. And at this point, and then there's our next threat. Second one, very quickly. Threat number 2, if you like. He's going to take your brother and this planet and grind them to. Reduce the planet to, last time his words were unfinished. It's the same again. because this is where the attack begins. But we have to assume reduce the planet to rubble, to ashes, whatever. And again, it's an immature thing. It's a stupid thing to say. And economically, politically, militarily, regardless of how he might, even if he wishes to appear confident of this kind of thing, to show that he's powerful, it's something that he can't really carry out. I think it makes each of these statements makes the emperor seem weak. And they have very much that whenever he purred earlier, he's the lion on the throne. He's a pussycat, isn't he? But I got very much the sense of that we have a mouse in here with him. This is very much a lion and the mouse kind of story at this minute. And at this point in this chapter, and the mouse is incredibly deadly. And of course, Paul is a mouse as well, isn't he? But if we know Aesop's fables and things, one of the things that are actually ready to start with the next chapter is that Paul is the mouse to the fox to the lion. But I think there's little hints of Aesop's fables in this. Alia is very much not a frightened little mouse. She's a brave mouse here. But in the face of the big cat, but particularly with the emperor is described as being purred, where he purred, and that's kind of where he's using what he knows about with the Atreides and the Baron against the Baron, keeping the Baron silenced. I think the Baron's hoping now that there's a mutual blackmail going to go on. But of course the way the emperor phrases things are that it kind of puts things into the Baron's laps, but also suggests that he's innocent of this affair. So there's our another threat, and then of course we're told the room rumbled and I've drawn a wee nuclear explosion here. Attack begins. The room rumbled and shook around him. There came a sudden cascade of sand behind the throne, where the hutment was coupled to the emperor's ship. The abrupt flicker, tightening of skin pressure told of a wide area shield being activated. I told you, my brother comes. She's a harbinger of doom here, isn't she, Alia? Yeah, I think if you think about the number of archetypes that Alia could occupy at any given time is also a very interesting thing. Oh, the other one I was thinking of. Oh no, I was thinking of something else. Sorry, I'm not going on with that there. Just looking up something there, but it was the wrong thing I was thinking of. But yes, indeed, Paul's coming. I told you my brother comes. Alia's commentary, I think, increases the tension, builds the fear in the Emperor and the Baron and everybody here. And I suppose the other thing that's interesting to think of is that there's an audience to this. There are people watching this in a kind of way the way we are. We're a bit of an audience to this as well. But yeah. Let's see, just a few comments there. Shaddam seems more than interested in telepathy than he is in his empire, says Connor, and not from the Mother Superior. Rattle here. Oh, let's go back. And are they communicating using prescience? Paul and I don't think they're communicating. I think they both know what's happening. As events move, it's possible though, and it's a tricky one. If Alia can be in the Reverend Mother's mind, Paul could also be there too. I think it's one of those things that we don't know too much about. It's all whale fur and spice and Sue stones. Economics, yes. Was it pundy rice as well? Things like that. But yeah, I suppose again you kind of get the idea with the economics of the Imperium. It's very similar to kind of I suppose modern day stock markets, but more so like commodities, that kind of thing. If you see what I mean. I find it quite hard to believe that planets would have so few commodities. But again, we get the idea of the planets being strip mined, and of course that the House Harkonnen is it are on Kaitan, isn't it, their planet? But that's not their home planet. Their home planet is, as far as I know, again, not moving into the Brian Herbert kind of thing, but it is Silius Secundus itself, and it's a hell world. And again, you get the sense that it's possibly been strip mined or something like that, you know. So, I told you my brother comes. The Emperor stood in front of his throne, right hand poised to right ear. The servo receiver there chattering its report on the situation. The Baron, we're told, moved 2 steps behind Alia. And there is Sardaukar leaping into positions at the door. So the attack's underway. The Baron moves just behind Alia. And the Emperor announces, "We will fall back into space and reform." Baron, my apologies. These madmen are attacking under cover of the storm. So the Baron was right. We will show them an Emperor's wrath then. Sorry, we will show them an Emperor's wrath then. And he pointed to Alia, give her body to the storm. So we're going to fall back into space and reform. We'll show them an Emperor's wrath. That's another threat to destroy the planet, I think. Give her body to the storm, euphemistically, kill her and dispose of her body. And that's Alia. And of course, this is where things go it's very sudden turn in events here. The tension's been building, the strangeness, the everything that's wonderful and weird about Alia building towards this moment, and the action happens real quick. Alia, as he spoke, so give her body to the storm. Alia, as he spoke, I love this, fled backward, feigning terror. Oh no! Again, you could imagine a child actress doing this, and possibly how much over the top would they go with it? Like, oh no, I'm so scared. But the feigning terror, and then she says, "Let the storm have what it can take." She screamed, and it fell back into the Baron's arms. Let me just get that. I think she screamed. 52. Sorry, my old notes again. "Let the storm have what it can take," she screamed, and she backed into the Baron's arms. And here we go. "I have her, Your Majesty. Shall I dispatch her now?" And he hurled her to the floor, clutching his left arm. "I'm sorry, grandfather. You've met the Atreides Gom Jabbar." And she got to her feet and dropped a dark needle from her hand. The Baron fell back, his eyes bulged as he stared at a red slash on his left palm. You! And that is the Baron dead. Rolling sideways in his suspensors, a sagging mass of flesh supported off the floor with head lolling and mouth hanging open. Very dead. There we go. And I have, of course, given the Baron his own little skull. There we are. But as I said, I accidentally flipped through 2 pages in the notes. We did it a couple of times. So for that page, I gave the Baron, just to commemorate his death, we give him a nice big rest in peace there. We're having a look, decided to note some of the qualities of the Baron. But the end of a great villain, and even a little bit underused as a villain, I think sometimes. The Baron is a great villain. Of course, he's very diluted and watered down in Denis Villeneuve's film version. He's just a fat man with no intelligence at all. He can't even speak clearly. Really quite pathetic version of the Baron we've seen on the screen. I think he's a very clever. He is the smart guy, but he's playing for the throne, but he loses. I think here, and that's him, and he's taken out by his granddaughter. What a great! And of course, the David Lynch does this very, very well. But it's basically, "I'm sorry, grandfather, you've met the Atreides Gom Jabbar. He is killed by a Gom Jabbar needle and poison, and it seems to be quite a fast, effective You, and that's his last words. And I also think it's kind of interesting that his last words are you, and they're a wee bit not too far away from Yui, aren't they? In a funny way. I just thought just the sound of that made me think a little bit of Yui at this point. So that's the Baron dead. These people are insane, says the Emperor. Quick, into the ship. We'll purge this planet of every... There's another one. So they're all hyperbolic. I'm going to blow the crap out of this planet statements. Now, excuse me. He's interrupted again. Every time we never quite get to find out. I think it's quite funny if we do look at the writing. Just to back up, I have but to rally my foot, and I'll reduce this planet to, and he doesn't get to finish his sentence. He's interrupted. I'm going to take your brother on this planet, and I'm going to grind him too. And again, he's interrupted. Give her body, etc., etc. And I just think it's kind of funny that every time he goes off on a bit of a rant. The last one there, these people are insane. Quick, into the ship. We'll purge this planet of every... And again, something sparkled to his left. A roll of ball lightning bounced away from the wall there, crackled as it touched the metal floor. The smell of burned insulation swept through the Selimlik. And a Sardaukar officer shouts, the shield, the outer shield is down. And he's interrupted. His words drowned out by a metallic roaring as the ship wall behind the Emperor trembled and rocked. So I just think it's great. Just Herbert's writing there. That's a nice little touch, and you could almost use it for good comic effect. I think in a TV or film version, but just the way he's, the hyperbolic nature of his speeches. I can't wait to grind. Every time he's about to tell us what he's about to grind us into, there's a noise over it. I think it's funny. It's comic, and there is something comic, darkly comic about this chapter. Particularly with this Alia, this child, killing the main, what appears to be the main villain of the book, and we haven't reached the conclusion yet. And it seems, and it will seem, a bit anticlimactic in some ways, I think. So the outer shield is down, and then someone says they've shot the nose off our ship. Of course, we remember from the previous chapter, the Fremen were all sighting up their weapons on the noses of the ships just before the storm came in, so that they could just open fire without having to sight them again. So we're told dust boiled through the room. Under its cover, Alia leaped up and ran towards the outer door. And again, just the image, off she goes. And the Emperor whirled and motioned his people into an emergency door that swung open on the ship's side behind the throne. He flashed a hand signal to a Sardaukar officer leaping through the dust. We will make our stand here, he ordered. And another crash, we're told, shook the hutment. Oh, we've got some comments here, folks. I'll just have a wee read through them before we continue. Let's see. The Guild has a stranglehold on space travel. It does in this universe, but it also doesn't have to. I suppose it beggars some questions about it, but we'll get to one of the appendices with that, Carlos, about space travel and so on. But absolutely, they do have a control on it. Space travel is possible without them. That's the interesting thing. Caravaggio saying a King Lear moment. And Connor saying at least Shaddam gets everyone out before. Cynthia saying, what is the Atreides Gom Jabbar? Is Alia acting as a Bene Gesserit and pronouncing that he has not acted as a human in the current trap? Is she creating a new test of her own, or is it a poison and opportunity? My understanding is that the Gom Jabbar, the high-handed enemy, that it's a test, but the poisons used could be anything. And that's why, as Mohim says, this one kills only animals. Is Alia acting as a Bene Gesserit and pronouncing that he is not acting as I don't think so, because there's a Bene Gesserit in the room, Cynthia. Mohim's here, isn't she? I think this is Alia taking revenge, Atreides' revenge. This is something different. Uh, has not acted as a human in the current. That's really interesting. So is Alia act? Let me just get my head around that, Cynthia. Is Alia acting as a Bene Gesserit and pronouncing that he's not acted as a human in the current trap? Very good. Is she creating a new test of her own, or is it poison and opportunity? I meant to say, or is it merely poison and opportunity? I don't. It's an interesting thing. It's a very good point. Sorry, a very good question, Cynthia. I think this is a poison. We're not going to get to see it in too much detail. It's kind of a surprise killing, isn't it? And it also makes you think, why doesn't she take the Emperor while she's at it? It's because it doesn't seem to be beyond her at all. The Gom Jabbar is the high-handed enemy. Just looking at the terminology, that specific poison needle, it says, it's a specific needle tipped with a meta-cyanide used by Bene Gesserit proctors in the death alternative test of human awareness. So I think in that sense that the test is one thing. I don't think this is the test. I think this is just the application of the needle and the poison from the test. Acting apparently has not acted as a human. She does call him a beast. You old beast. The interesting thing about that, just in terms of I always thought that the actual Bene Gesserit test for with the Gom Jabbar and the box, the PN box, etc., is to sift for psychopaths. That's what I got from it. Goodness, and I would have to wonder where my evidence for that is. I think it might be somewhere in the PhD. It's a long time since I've thought about it. That the ability to create a Kwisatz Haderach is fine, one thing, but if that Kwisatz Haderach is a psychopath, and I also get that the idea is that that's what applies to the twisted mentats. That for example, Piter is a psychopath. I think the Comic Con's on here in Northern Ireland in a few weeks' time, and I believe Brad Dourif's appearing. So there you go. Somebody from Dune will be there. It's a good question. I think this is Alia is an assassin here. I think she's in just doing damage. And as I said, this needle could go straight into the Emperor. It could go into Mohiam. It could go into anybody. She could cause havoc here. I think, well, she does. But it's a good question. I'm honestly not sure. Because I think of the Baron as a very human character in Dune. But that's what I'm not sure about. He's not acting as a human in the current trap. How would he behave? He's in the trap. And does he take the opportunity? He's not really got the opportunity to run, I think. Will he wait and see and attack the person that's trapping him? Well, I think the whole thing is that, again, the idea that Alia being a hostage, and we have that epigraph, that not everything's not as much she's allowed herself to be taken captive. That makes her not a prisoner in my book, not a hostage. Someone who breaks into a prison to be there isn't a prisoner. I think I have a relative of mine a while back in World War II broke into a prison and then got out again. That's an old story. I don't really know too much of the details, but McGilligan prison is the one we're talking about during World War II. She tested him and found him wanting. Well, he's I don't know. I think it's a direct assassination. And the other thing that the Baron talks about that he fears here, that he doesn't, he thinks the reason why the Baron thinks he's okay is because of the Great Convention. And if we back up to that, let me just have a wee look. Does he, back when he thinks that the Emperor is going to kill him, this would apply, I suppose, if Paul's a duke and Alia is his sister. Does he mean to kill, not with the other great houses waiting up there? aching for. He couldn't. So this is to do with the dictum familia, isn't it? How did we put it there again? Sorry, let me just back up. Prohibits the slaying, so the killing of a royal person or member of a great house by informal treachery. The rules set up the formal outline and limits the means of assassination. So I would say that what's happened here, when you're saying that has she maybe created a new test of her own, I think Alia has violated the great convention here, and she's violated the dictum familia. She's murdered. She's assassin. I think it's an act of assassination. You know, but it's a really good question, Cynthia, and I'm not sure if I've got the right answer. You know, poison and opportunity. And you have to assume that the Sardaukar have searched her at this point, and I would have some respect for her after losing so many men to this child who's commanding the there's Alia brings up an awful lot of questions, and I think it's a bit headlong, this episode, this chapter, in some ways. We'll make her stand here. Another crash. Yeah, here we go. So another crash shook the hutment. The double doors banged open at the far side of the chamber, and admitting the wind-blown sand and the sound of shouting, a small black-robed figure could be seen momentarily against the light. Alia darting out to find a knife, and as befitted her Fremen training, to kill Harkonnen and Sardaukar wounded. House Sardaukar charged through a green-yellow haze towards the opening. So she just gets this lovely little, comes in, messes with everybody. They kill her. She ends up going, oh no, I'm so scared. Kills her uncle, her grandfather. And then there's all sorts of chaos, and she's just seen going, ooh, 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 and ooh, knife, and off she goes to kill. And what an entrance, what an exit, and what a character. That's Alia's done her business in a very short, sharp time. Very impressive, very deadly. And yes, it does bring up a lot of questions for us. Other memories, I think one of the toughest things to get our heads around sometimes, because it doesn't really work. But there are examples like this with the Reverend Mother Gaius Helmoheim. She's in my head. She shouldn't be. According to whatever rules work with this thing, but she shouldn't be there, but she is. So they're on their way. And of course, so the House Sardaukar charged through a green-yellow haze towards the opening, weapons ready, forming an arc there to protect the Emperor's retreat. And the Sardaukar officer, save yourself, sire, into the ship. But, we're told, the Emperor stood alone on his dais, pointing towards the doors. Sorry, that's my handwriting. A 40-meter section of hutment had been blasted away there, and the Salamlik's doors opened now onto drifting sand. A dust cloud hung low over the outside world, blowing from pastel distances. Static lightning crackled from the cloud, the spark flashes of shields being shorted out by the storm's charge could be seen through the haze. And I just put battle next to it. There's some really nice writing there from Frank. There's all sorts there, alliteration, sibilants, etc., etc. And it's a nice little bit of writing. Let's see. 58. Oh, sorry, I just lost my place here a wee second, folks. Give me a second. Seen through the haze. Where are we? Here we go. So we're told the battle is in full swing. The plane surged with figures in combat, Sardaukar and leaping, gyrating, robed men who seemed to come down out of the storm. All this was a frame for the Emperor's pointing hand. And us. as I've made a note here. And out of the sand haze, we're told, came an orderly mass of flashing shapes, great rising curves with crystal spokes that resolved into gaping mouths of sandworms, a massed wall of them, each with troops of Fremen riding to the attack. They came in a hissing wedge, robes whipping in the wind as they cut through the melee on the plain. Onward towards the Emperor's hutment. Quite a sight. That would be a great way to show that in a film, wouldn't it? Just the Emperor going, pointing on the camera, just taking all of this in. And it's the great rising. It gives a nice little build up for the worms here. An orderly mass of flashing shapes, great rising curves with crystal spokes that resolved into gaping mouths of sandworms. A massed wall of them, each with troops of Fremen riding to the attack. So yeah. Great. It's a great wee moment in the book. Onward towards the Emperor's hutment they came, while the House Sardaukar stood awed for the first time in their history by an onslaught their minds found difficult to accept. But figures leaping from wormbacks were men, and the blades flashing in ominous yellow light were a thing Sardaukar had been trained to face. They threw themselves into combat, and it was man-to-man on the plain of Arrakeen, while a picked Sardaukar bodyguard pressed the Emperor back into the ship, sealed the door on him, and prepared to die at that door as part of his shield. Excuse me. In fact, we've got a little bit more to go, folks. I'm going to catch up with your comments in a wee second. I'm just going to run to the loo quickly, and we'll get right back on with it. Bear with me a wee second. Hello, and we're back. That's better. Let's have a look at your comments, folks. That's working okay, isn't it? Let's see. I better back up a wee bit. As Joseph Smith saying howdy Joseph, how's it going, mate? I hope you're keeping well. Connor Quinn saying howdy back. She might have just made a quip. In the test at the start of the book, Gaius, as Cynthia is saying, Gaius Helen describes the test of Paul as something that separates humans from animals. Yes. As I always point out, humans are animals. If you see what I mean. It's an interesting one, isn't it? I don't know. You see, I actually, in terms of all of these abilities and various characters throughout Dune, the Baron to me is one of the most human. If you see what I mean, he's he doesn't seem to have any particular accelerated abilities or anything. He uses his wits. He's almost a good example of a baseline human, I think, in the Dune series. And I was just thinking about actually what you were saying there a minute ago, and I was actually thinking, is this like Aristaya? What personal combat within things like the Iliad and stuff, where you put two major characters face off. The Barons, but it is an attempt to kill Alia here as well. So you could argue that she acts in self-defense, if you like. It's interesting about you've met the Atreides Gom Jabbar. I think we'd have to have a wee think about that phrase entirely and what you're saying. So I don't have an instant easy answer, I suppose, but I get what you were saying in your question. What is the Atreides Gom Jabbar? Is Alia acting as a Bene Gesserit and pronouncing that he is not acting as a human in the current trap? Is she creating a new test of her own? Or is it poison and opportunity? I do think it's poison and opportunity. She's certainly broken the law here, I think, in terms of assassinations of a leader of a major house. And I think it's simply point that they don't care, that what's coming is a new thing, if you see what I mean. Cross says, wouldn't Mohiam be able to transmute the poison, rendering it harmless? I would imagine so. I would imagine that poisons are pretty useless on the Bene Gesserit, I think, which is interesting in a world in this universe where everybody's kind of using. Again, the Fremen are probably one of these exceptions to this, but everybody uses poison snoopers and so on. But yeah, you'd imagine that any poison would be able to be rendered harmless by a Reverend Mother. Caravaggio saying, if you consider that the Baron was tested by the Bene Gesserit at some point in past, then Alia's passing comment on the Bene Gesserit and the Baron with that statement. That's an interesting point. What do you think of that, Cynthia? Passing comment on the Bene Gesserit. I don't think she's acting as certainly don't think she's acting as a Bene Gesserit here. And again, if we have the other way we can go with this is that she is an Atreides, and that interfamilial murder revenge is what part of that family does. But yeah, that's a good point, Caravaggio. Very good. Cosmic Faust, Alice saying, glad to see you back doing this talk. Thanks very much, Cosmic. I don't know how, we've been back a few weeks at it now, but we were off for the better part of a year. But yeah, we're on our way to getting it finished. So this is the penultimate. We've got one more chapter, and then we've actually covered the whole story. And we'll probably take 3 or 4 more episodes to look at the appendices of Dune. We are going through the whole book. So thanks very much, Cosmic. Was the Baron tested? Who knows? I would imagine, Connor, that the way things are talked about in the book is that there's quite a lot of people who've been tested about with the box and the Gom Jabbar. In terms of the taking the poison, the water of life, that's a different thing. But I'd imagine that probably to do with the breeding program, etc., that he probably was tested in some way. Caravaggio saying, not sure, Connor, it's a presumption on my part. Again, there's lots of things that we can presume, and I often talk about I know sometimes that things bleed down from the Baron Herbert books that I'm not really that familiar with. I've read a few of them. So I tend to try and run with what we know in the book and what Frank presents us with, and of course there's little things that kind of maybe pay off later on. Says in Caravaggio's good point, it makes sense that Alia is also making a statement to the Bene Gesserit as she takes it on herself to kill the Baron. And I suppose the one thing that's not really fleshed out too much, I suppose, is what's going on with the Reverend Mother here. What is this about? It's and she shouldn't be there, but she is. That kind of mirrors Paul. And sometimes I do consider, again, Paul and Alia as two faces of the Janus aspect, I feel like. The children of Leto, Artemis and Apollo. And Alia, yeah, if Alia is Artemis, her arrows are extremely deadly. She's lethal. Sometimes that's the way I think of them as well. It depends, again, with the characters and the different archetypes, different heroes, that they're, different little things that we can find built into the story, But Alia's just absolutely lethal here. If you think about all these heroes, Babs had talked about a bit of an overlay of the Greek mythological hero Atalanta, who's the absolute business, if you know what I mean. And I get the sense of a little bit of Alia here, Atalanta and Alia as well. But yeah, yeah, I think definitely there's something. The Bene Gesserit are not part of this, and she really is quite harsh, you know, to Mohiam. You know, you babble, woman. You know, that's not how it was. And you played your, you know, all this, and then that's not unless I'm this kind of thing. It's very good. There's again, having things not fully explained is part of what Frank does, and it's good for the story. It's good for us, I suppose, in wondering and being curious the way we are, wonder what's going on. You know, not everything in this book has an answer, but it's great to wonder and speculate and discuss it. I said one of the interesting things when I did this all these years, when I did my PhD on this all those years back, you couldn't find a single person interested in chatting about this. Nobody gave a monkey's out. I just had no social group, if you like, that would had any shape or form interest in this book. And it's a delight to find a lot of people who are really into it and that can provide such good insight and question the book and wonder about it. And it is these things, I think, that make you come back to Dune a lot. And that, as I said, I like to point out that rereads of Dune, I think, reward the reader. There's always something you didn't notice, or maybe you pick up one later on, you know. Cara saying, Cynthia, the Bene Gesserit do see themselves as teachers guiding humanity. Yeah, very much that, you know, the Jesuit mentality to them as well, isn't it? Ali was throwing shade on everything. She's doing a real diss on everybody there, Connor, I think. There's Chaya saying, if Alia is like Paul, she can see both the female and male inner spaces and ancestors. It would explain why she can be possessed by the Baron later. Yes, it does. The question, yeah, it's tricky. The question is, does she? I suppose. I think, I suppose we're looking forward to getting to look at Alia as an adult. I suppose we learned a little bit more about her. Well, at this point, she's very mysterious. Oh, once you start thinking about these kind of things, it really, I think we could do the whole night talking about other memory and who's where and who's what. And we've had a good old natter with many of you before about what's the Baron doing in Alia's other memory. And there's an awful lot of good answers to that. It's something that I've enjoyed speculating about, I think. But yes, indeed, there are similar aspects of each other. That's the thing. But again, the idea of, I suppose what you're saying, Chad, the bit that I always have a problem with it is how does the person's memories get into someone else's memories? And with the Bene Gesserit, we're generally shown that a Reverend Mother, someone who wants to pass on her collective memories and her own memories, has to pass it on and then dies at that point. And it's a process that you do at the end of your life, or it causes death. So again, you know, who's the Baron passing on his memories to here, his life experience, that kind of thing. It's weird. Connor saying, how does the rapport work? I get the, well, generally I get that. I suppose that it doesn't really explain. I suppose the best way of looking at it is in the chapter where Ramallo passes on her, Reverend Mother Ramallo passes on her memories to Jessica. And I think that's generally the best sort of example of it. I know that there's more detail on that later on in the books, the Bene Gesserit books, I think. Caravaggio says you can go crazy thinking about it. I've nearly done so, Caravaggio, and I've put a lot of thought into it because I've gone back to the ideas of, I suppose, the collective unconscious, and all of this stuff that comes from Butler all the way back, and kind of, it's another idea that Frank Herbert's run with from Samuel Butler's Erewhon. The face dancers, you can go crazy. It's an amazing work. It's just one of those things that I think it's the as a plot device, if you want to look at it that way, it's an incredible thing, and to help build such powerful characters, ultimately leading. I suppose we look at Paul as the prophet, leading the way, paving the way for his son, the God. And what kind of what sort of power does that look like? Omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence, all of these things. And very much I got the sense that the idea of the other memory taking is very much that movement. The ideas are in Jung's ideas of the collective unconscious and Butler's ideas of that as well, I think. It's really complicated. Scientifically, it's not considered, an idea that's really seems to stand any ground. But at the same time, we do consider things like genes, and how genes are passed on and this kind of thing over millions of years. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I'd happily kind of put my head into gear and sort of prep a wee bit one night for it, or maybe put my head into gear and have a real go at it. But I would much be, my knowledge of the later books is grand, but I can't remember them that well. I haven't read them in a good while. Genetic memory has been debunked. Yes, lots of TP in this, and it's at a time whenever these books are being written, there's a lot of kind of pseudoscientific stuff re-emerging and being repackaged, if you like. We've got things that like general semantics and goes up to Dianetics, and eventually you get the Scientology. Telepathy, all of these telepathic powers, these kind of mind things that are being repackaged in the 50s as psionics, if you like. If anybody plays their Dungeons and Dragons will know that term from there. And I think Frank is a little bit into these kind of things. There are quotes from him about stuff like this, and I think Frank maybe keeps an open mind about some of the more pseudo-scientific things that are around at the time. You'll find them in his books, but at the same time, Frank's not a scientist, and I think he would go with certain things longer than someone like myself would go stop and go, that's a load of hooey, if you see what I mean. China says God Emperor Leto has access to male memories, and he and Galima remember both their parents until conception. The male memories seem genetic, not intentionally passed. Genetic memory has been developed. It makes a good story. It certainly does. Thank you very much, guys. Excellent. Even some of these things, they move them into today. What's the term for some of these things? They call them fringe science, isn't that it? Quite a good term. I quite like that sort of stuff. It's interesting. Just because it's not true doesn't make it not fun, I think, sometimes. So let's see where we're at, folks. Yes, the Sardaukar prepared to die as part of his shield, a shield of bodies. So in the ship, we're told, in the shock of comparative silence within the ship, the Emperor stared at wide-eyed faces of his suite. Let's see. Seeing his old... Let's see. Hang on. Sorry, I've made a wee mistake here. What have I written? Oh, yeah. No, it's okay. That's just some wee note I've written here. He stared at wide-eyed faces of his suite, seeing his oldest daughter with the flush of exertion on her cheeks. Is of course Irulan. The old truthsayer standing like a black shadow, hood pulled about her face, finding at last the faces he sought, the two guildsmen. They wore the guild grey, unadorned, and it seemed to fit the calm they maintained, despite high emotions around them. So the two guildsmen were told that one's tall and fat, and the other one's small and fat. So the first one, the taller guildsman, we're told, held a hand to his left eye, and the emperor watched. Someone jostled the guildsman's arm, and the hand moved, and the eye was revealed. And the man had lost one of his masking contact lenses, and the eye stared out a total blue, so dark as to be almost black. I'm kind of wondering why they bothered to disguise their eyes here. The smaller guildsman elbowed his way a step nearer the emperor and said, "We cannot know how it'll go." The taller guildsman, which hand restored to his eye, added in a cold voice, "But this Muad'Dib cannot know either." This kind of echoes what Paul was saying in the previous chapter, that as the more he moves towards these events, the closer he gets towards it, the more muddled his prescient vision becomes. But it was also the same for the guild. That's just a sort of reiteration of that statement, I think, here. Excuse me. But this Muad'Dib cannot know. He doesn't know how. We don't know how it'll go, but neither does he. And it's shocking to the emperor. These words shocked him out of his daze. He checked the scorn on his tongue by a visible effort, because so he's ready to give these guys verbal here. Because it did not take a guild navigator's single-minded focus on the main chance to see the immediate future. On the main chance to see the immediate future out on that plane. In other words, I don't need somebody with presence to tell me my army's getting hammered out there and they're doomed. Basically, the Sardaukar are doomed is essentially that conclusion. I don't need a guild navigator with prescience to tell me that, or limited prescience. And his thoughts here: were these two so dependent on their faculty, they had lost the use of their eyes and their reason? He wondered, and I think that's quite an important within the philosophy and ideas of Dune. It's a very interesting little statement there. Were these two so dependent on their faculty, excuse me, that they'd lost the use of their eyes and their reason? He wondered. It's a bit like, I think it was something a bit like me saying the other week when we were on here, but somebody was asking about the weather here or something like that, and I think I commented that the weather forecast is seldom accurate here, and that the best way to know what the weather's like where I live is to stick your head out the window and look with your own two eyes, because it seldom matches what we're told on online or by the TV, etc. You know, it's that kind of thing. Are they so reliant on their own sort of presence that they can't actually see with their own two eyes what's happening out there? You know, reliance, dependency, I think is what that's about. Well, the word dependence there, isn't it? Sorry. So the emperor said, "Reverend Mother, we must devise a plan." So this little bit here, I think, is the first time where the emperor's kind of acted like one. I think here he's finally, as opposed to a spoiled child, which is what I get a lot of him from this chapter. So Mohiam, we're told, pulled the hood from her face and met his gaze with an unblinking stare. The look that passed between them carried complete understanding. They had one weapon left, and both knew it. Treachery. That's a great way to end the chapter here. Mohiam says, "Summon Count Fenring from his quarters." The emperor nodded, waved for one of his aides to obey that command. And that's how we end chapter 47, the penultimate chapter. Count Casimir Fenring has been summoned. Treachery. And one of our main villains, the Baron, has been dispatched by a 3 or 4 year old girl, which is just brilliant. And there we go, folks. We're about to get ready to start the final chapter of Dune. Thank you very much, for helping out tonight, as always. If you've got any other wee comments or questions, fire away. As Connor points out, well, these things, whether they work out or not, whether they're true or not, they certainly do make a good story. Jessica missed Yui's treachery by relying too much on her own faculty. Yeah. Well, also, it's not just Jessica who misses it. Everyone misses it. It's because of the sign of assurance. It's a guarantee. that the doctors won't betray a trust, I suppose, isn't it? But there are no guarantees in life. There are no absolutes. There are no these kind of things. And Dune is full of them, and Herbert seeds them with this book full of them. And you have to wonder what is he trying to point out. The one thing that Herbert does ask himself when he talks about this is he asks the question, which I can feed the same question to you as readers of the book, is simply, what does this teach us? Is what he likes to ask. He doesn't want to force ideas down your throat, and he doesn't want to explain them to you all the time. He wants you to kind of draw your own conclusions. But as always, what does this teach us is interesting. And of course, Casimir Fenring, we've had a good wee chat about him. I will try and dig out from the notebooks for next time the chapter where I actually found a whole bunch of info about Fenring, because he's based probably on 3 or 4 real historical people that are all quite interesting. So I must do a wee keyword search to find out where he turns up in the book first, and then I'll find the corresponding chapter from these notebooks, which is kind of all the point of doing them. So there we go. But yes, Casimir Fenring. Very obvious nod to Fenrir the Wolf, if you like. Is one of the great characters in Dune. As I keep pointing out to people, I one of my favorite things, the major characters aren't all that in some ways. They're interesting, they're fascinating, but they're not. I think where Dune really shines in terms of the characterization it's the minor characters. They're all great. They're, we've got Alia here, who really is a minor character in this book at this point. And really actually have to consider Chani quite a minor character to a degree in the previous a couple of chapters there back, how these characters really come into their own. And one of my other favorite ones, really, I think, when Herbert's writing at his best and stuff, characters like the Shadowed Mapes, and even Jamis and his belligerence. These minor characters really do so much, I think, when they turn up in the book. And Fenring is a failed Kwisatz Haderach. He's something else. And again, there's expectations are being played with here. Certainly, it's not at this point in the book. If you've never read Dune before, would you have expected the little baby girl to kill the Baron? That should have got, as much as most of us are familiar with this, that should have went didn't see that coming. The traditional thing that we expect is, Paul and the Baron are the enemies, really, in that sense. But in all honesty, the Baron was Leto's enemy. But you kind of expect the hero to and kill the main villain at the end of the show, don't you? And we've had that expectation taken away from us already. We're not at the last chapter. The action's, raging around us. But what's Paul doing? This is Alia has come in and killed the Baron. And what a way to knock your expectations out. And again, to really showcase your writing, I think the writing's a lot better in this chapter than the previous one. Pardon me. And they create such an impressive character with economy, I think, economy of language and economy of action, economy of movement. She's absolute cracking character, I think. I don't know what you think about Alia, guys. I love her. I absolutely love her. And everything about her is there's a lot of wonder, mystery, and danger. Real danger. To me, she always seemed, at this point in the book when I was reading it for the first time, always seemed to be much more dangerous than her brother. That was just me, and she has a character that we get to go further with and look at in a lot more detail as an adult. But there's a lot of she's a really tragic character. She's fun. I thought what a great, she's probably been the most fun any character has been in this chapter. Teasing these people, make them suffer some more is just a delight. It's there's something wonderfully vicious about her. And it reminds me of let me see if I can find it. The quotation about her, isn't it? About St. Alia of the Knife. I should have looked up my own work instead of that. Oh, that's the bit we're looking for. There you go. This bit from Dune. Thus spoke St. Alia of the knife. The Reverend Mother must combine the seductive wiles of a courtesan with the untouchable majesty of a virgin goddess, holding these attributes and tensions so long as the powers of her youth endure. For when youth and beauty have gone, she will find that the place between, once occupied by tension, has become a wellspring of cunning and of resourcefulness. There's a quote about her, later, isn't it? That's not quite the one I was thinking about her being the virgin harlot, this kind of thing. To be so innocent and have the full vulgarity, if you like, of all these other people's memories and words, etc. That she's a very tragic character, and the nature of her tragedy is pretty unique, I think. Let me just catch up your comments, folks. I remember the Sardaukar officer who took the Red Duke's medal as a souvenir, says Connor. China says, in a book of politics and empires, the women played the pivotal role, surprising for 1965. 63, really, if you think about it, China. It was published in 63, so it's a book format comes out in 65. I mean, very particularly, we're going to see that at the end of the book. As much as we go, who's this story really about? That becomes another interesting question. And of course, it's bookmarked, this book, by the Bene Gesserit, really, in a sense, isn't it? By the women. Yes, I totally agree. Barry Homeowner, hi Barry, says, love the series. Thank you for sharing your breakdowns and thoughts. Thank you very much, Barry. Thanks for joining us. And it's everyone else's thoughts as well as all helps, Barry. So feel free to chirp in. Thank you very much. Let me see where we go. But yeah, politics, empires. There's a lot. It's women play the pivotal role, surprising for 1965. I can think of plenty of some other literature where the women provide very interesting roles, but some of them would be things like the Arabian Nights, some of those stories. But yes, for this kind of time, I think Child of Dune is a book written in the 50s, mostly. Its publication date 65, published in magazine format 63. But he's writing it for 5 years. So if you want to backtrack that, really, the bulk of the book is written in the late 50s. That's the way. I do think of it as a book from the 60s, but it's a kind of one of those, it's crossed over a wee bit, 50s, 60s, I like that aspect of it. So, excuse me, says Connor. Barry Homer, since she is so tragic, and Connor, absolutely. She gets her own religions, though. And Ryan the Scar saying Alia is ridiculously overpowered for just a little girl. Well, yes. And again, I suppose if she's something like or slightly different or is a Kwisatz Haderach, the question begets, as always, why would you create something so ridiculously dangerous as a Kwisatz Haderach? The other interesting thing is who's warned the Bene Gesserit? Don't do this. Okay, do not give any of your sisters this particular kind of poison while they happen to be pregnant, or otherwise you'll get this. And they've been warned about it. And this is what the Mohiam says here. And Alia goes, "You're talking nonsense." And it's what does Alia know there that is passed on? I think that she reveals to Mohiam is interesting, but ridiculous. Yeah, I mean. Again, I suppose we're always in the presence of, human beings who are are close enough to what we might think of as gods, Or God, message has been retracted. Caravaggio saying, time to walk the dogs. Thanks, Doc. Thanks, chat. Great conversation. Thank you, Caravaggio. Enjoy your dander with the dogs. Sure, I've had mine out up the road there today. And we got drenched. So I took an opportunity in the weather. It's Northern Ireland for you. I thought, it's looking okay. I'll get the girls up the hill. We got all the way to the far end of it, and then got absolutely drenched coming back. She by Ryder Haggard. Enjoy the walk, says Connor. Take it easy, Caravaggio. Have a nice one. She must be obeyed. I've got some Rider Haggard here, Connor. Oh goodness, where would it be? She and Aisha and King Solomon's Mines and something else, but yeah. Goodness gracious, that's old. It's not really old stuff. There we go. What's that? The Return of She and King Solomon's Mines. She and Alan Quartermain got some really rather nice ones. Oh, they're just old, I suppose. Let me see. But I've been a long time. I wanted to kind of read these. Get around to reading these again. I've read, sorry, not all of them. I've read King Solomon's Mines and I've read She. Haven't read Alicia, The Return of She, but I've got picked this up, which was nice. Oh, lovely, big writing, gorgeous. But I do like H. Rider Haggard. 2 books in one from Wilco Books, lovely. But this is quite a nice one of these old sort of hardbacks. There we go. I sold insurance a long time ago, folks, when I was a student. One of the many jobs that I've had was I was an insurance salesman, sadly, for my sins, for Abbey National a long time ago. And I sold a guy called Alan Quartermain car insurance, I think. And I what's your name, sir? And he said, Alan Quartermain. That was his real name, believe it or not. And I recognised it, obviously, and congratulated him on having an excellent name. And he was I have sold car insurance to a man called Alan Quartermain. There you go. Some stupid little story from the past, But there you go. But yeah, she is a great character, and I'd love to do a wee set of stuff on that. I love Victorian science fiction, that kind of adventure stories, all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of good stuff in the Victorian era, and I'd point out the book that Dune, takes a lot from is Erewhon, which is out from the 1870s. But yeah, she's ridiculously overpowered for just a little girl. And as I suppose some other character. There's a character I thought it's not similar in a way, but I thought was quite tragic, as the daughter of Saul Weintraub, and and maybe it's her name Rachel. I can't remember. In Hyperion, is the child that ages backwards. Is another such interesting character. So there's a few ones in sort of maybe not so much serious stuff. The child, the mysterious child, this kind of thing. But Alia has so many different things. But a very tragic character. But we basically have the bigwigs of the universe here. This child is brought in under guard, takes the hand out of them, something wrong, and goes, "Oh no, I'm so scared," kills one of them and walks out the door, while instilling an amazing amount of fear and terror into these people, and basically smacking. We have the Emperor, arguably the person in charge of one of the richest of the great houses, which is the Baron, and the head, pretty much the proctor of the Bene Gesserit. This senior Bene Gesserit. There's 3 of the major power groups, and the guild are in the room, and she walks in and demonstrates this such, the power, but it's not an overt demonstration of power, if you see it. I mean, it's not like Alia comes in on a worm and just flattens everyone and then starts machine gunning people. It's just a little needle, and I very much got the sense of the last couple of last two chapters really have got me really thinking about the town mouse and the country mouse, and a whole bunch of Aesop's fables, but particularly the lion and the mouse, which you'll find in the Bible and stuff. Is it Daniel and is it the lion? Oh, here I'm mixing something up. Am I thinking of Daniel and the lion's den and something else with the lion and the mouse? I am mixing things up. But yeah, Alia is a mouse, and the Emperor is a as a pussycat, as a lion there. I thought it was quite interesting. The town mouse and the country mouse almost. Rachel or Monita, I guess. Hang on. Why, since I've read Hyperion, I'm looking forward to reading it again. Rachel Weintraub, yeah, that's him. That's his daughter's name. That wasn't a bad guess. Yeah, I like Hyperion. That's an interesting story. Arminija, I guess he sits on the lion throne. And the next chapter, as I said, if anybody's not ever read Aesop's Fables, by the way, just it won't take you very long to read them all, but they're absolutely worth it. The next chapter we have with Paul beginning the epigraph is he was a warrior and mystic, ogre and saint, the fox and the innocent. There we go. But the mouse, the fox, the lion, and a lot of the better stories about and Aesop's Fables, really the fox is a major character in a lot of them. For anybody who's, we'll have to wrap up shortly, folks. But if anybody's got any other wee questions or anything like that, fire away. As I said, hopefully the next chapter is 27 pages long. So I usually spend 2 hours per page. Is how long it takes me to do notes. So you can work out, you can do the math if you like. So I don't think we'll make it for next week, but we'll hopefully a fortnight's time. We'll aim to have that chapter done, and we're going to try and do it in one go here. So normally it's going to be a big long episode, I think, and maybe hopefully you'll join me for the full shebang. And I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's going to be a bit of we've actually got there, but we've made it to the end. And sometimes when you start these things, I don't know, my life has gone very, very crazy over the last year. And I didn't think we'd actually get this finished, to be honest with you. But I'm a person who absolutely hates not finishing what he starts. If you see what I mean, if I say I'm going to do something, I like to do it. Even if it takes a while, I like to get there in the end. But I'm glad that we've made such progress with this book, and it's been great fun doing this. And so I look forward to hitting the appendices. This is stuff that we can really get our teeth into outside of the actual story that really fleshes out, the universe of Dune. Particularly Appendix 2 is fascinating. Appendix 1's a great read. 3's not so bad. 4 is just that little very brief almanac on Ashraf, and then you have the terminology of the Imperium. I think we also have a wee flick through that just at the very end, just to see is there any little things in that terminology section that we've missed that you might just find just by flicking through it. I love books like that have little language things, maps, things to aid you in understanding your reading of the story. One of my big complaints about the Dune series being published, and we've clearly seen how bad these reprints are with so many mistakes in them. But one of my biggest complaints about them, and I think it causes problems for readers who decide to go on with it, is that there is no terminology in the other books. And I think if you'd enjoyed Dune, you were reading Dune Messiah, there's plenty of terms that you're always going to encounter strange words and terminology within Dune. And I think the lack of that at the end of each of the other books detracts from them. I think it's a good use to the reader. It's helpful. And even with the terminology there, we've seen, so many words within this book that aren't explained, that have, explicit double meanings or a nod to a scientist or a nod to a particular thing. And designed to kind of really, if I don't know, maybe was Frank that big a pedant that he was hoping that maybe other people out there will be pedantic enough, if you know what I mean, to investigate these things that he's written about quite subtly. I thought reading about the Tansley effect after Tansley was quite interesting. I hope you're still planning to continue through the whole series, says Chaya. Looking forward to your take on God Emperor and the Bene Gesserit books. Yeah, I do like them. It's been so long since I've read them. The Bene Gesserit's the least fresh in my mind. I'm reasonably good with the God Emperor because I like him so much. But it's just like all books that after a little while you've read it, you have a sense of the story. You know what happened. I know what happened in them all. But it's fishing out the little details. And whenever we talk about like this, Chaya, it's great to do it in detail. So with me, I'll be happily rereading them. I won't be rereading this. I think I've done my duty on Dune, but I've read the other books not as often. But I have read Dune Messiah quite a lot, and I've picked out God Emperor. I suppose I've read all of them about 3 or 4 times, I think, in total. But I've picked out God Emperor of Dune and read it on its own, 2 or 3 times separate from that. I've kind of just gone after that book and just enjoyed it. There's a lot of the ancient world in the God Emperor, if you know what I mean. And, I often talk about the Irish analog as well, and that there's that kind of stuff in it too. But yeah, Heretics Chapter House, I think they're great. I never thought of them as. I know some people think that the last 2 books didn't kind of have the same quality or anything like that. I never thought so. And I find it hard to pick out a favorite, but I think the 6 books in the Dune series are pretty consistent in terms of their quality, and they do approach. I suppose there's ideas within the stories that are move the action, if you like, a certain way. Dune Messiah is certainly a much more political book, as is God Emperor. You know, but you've Barry Homer saying, "Love God Emperor, looking forward to that." It'll take a wee while to get to them, I suppose. What I'm hoping to do, Chaya, is that doing Dune, getting through this book and doing it this way. I didn't really know what to do with it, but I thought this is the best way of approaching it. We'll have these notes, which will be useful for doing all sorts of things. But the way I'd like to keep up the book clubs, but I'd like to get back at what I wanted to do with the station as well. So the way I'm hopefully going to do it, and I think it's going to be a way of managing it a lot better, is initially I was trying to get this done 1 chapter a week. It's just a bit too much. But I think what I can do is I'll be able to go with a book club and just keep going through all 6. Then we'll just keep it going. But I'm going to do it that it's every other week. Hopefully then that'll mean in the meantime, the other week will give me time to sort of get back to writing and producing videos and stuff on science fiction in general, trying to push out what I like about science fiction and recommend it to all of you guys. And again, some of my sci-fi knowledge is pretty obscure, you know. So I've been thinking of it. I'd like to get back at every other week, do the book club, and in between doing maybe a science fiction audio book or a video on something. And I did do a big A to Z of here's what I'm going to do in terms of videos. I only managed to get 2 of them made before I ended up having to sort of come off. So I'd got the wee video made on A Boy and His Dog and the Bloods Are Over, that series, which is quite important to me. And we also managed to get one done on Tiger, Stars My Destination. And I kind of wanted to bookend that with another one on The Demolished Man. But I'm considering maybe trying to take different ideas from my A to Z and combine them and do a longer episodes and try to cover more of the books that I was talking about. But again, my sort of goal there is kind of to promote them to people without spoiling them in any shape or form. So it's a wee bit tricky. I want to tell you all about them and gush about them and recommend them, but I really, so far, I think I've done a good job of not spoiling the plot or anything like that. But yeah, there's some really good stuff. So it's to find a balance with the station, I think, and keep doing these things. And I've got lots of wee ideas. It's just I'm a one-man show, so everything takes time and effort. Let me see. Connor saying I love God Emperor. Connor Psionic. Psionic. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing these things right. Chad says I like God Emperor more each time I read it. It's hard to pick a favorite. Yeah, it's the character of the God Emperor. I think is very unusual within literature. Lots of people have. You'll find it within mythology and sagas and epics and all sorts of stuff, and quite a lot of it modern fantasy. But people, when they try to write characters who are like gods, if you wish, I think it's a very difficult thing to do. And I think Leto II as a character is one of the best attempts on it. I think he's a cracking character, and again, so much mystery. But he's an educator. He's trying to. It's Frank trying to teach you what he did to you in this, in many ways. The idea of being imprinted and imprinting. Frank Herbert is imprinting a hero onto his reader deliberately in this book, on record as saying, as I like to keep pointing out. He's not shy about it. He likes to say what he did to you. By the time you finish this book, you should absolutely love the Atreides, Paul Atreides, and all of this stuff. And the fundamental thing about it is that as we're noticing as we go through these books, these characters are not perfect. They're not evil in any particular sense of the term, but they're not quite good. And we tend to blame the universe that they inhabit, etc. But there are clues to what Paul will do and how Paul will behave. It's ultimately, how do we judge them at the end of the day? What do we think of these characters? What does it say about us? I think is the most important thing about Dune. And how much can you justify? I think it's a hard thing for the reader if you understand what he's trying to do. It's a hard thing for the reader to take on board and actually ask hard questions of yourself. And why did I think this guy was a great hero? Etc. And all of the answers are there. You should think he's a great hero. It's a very wonderful and tricky thing that he's done. And of course, the inversion of Dune Messiah when we get there caused it caused problems. Even that it was John W. Campbell wouldn't publish it. It really was in many ways. Dune is also an attack against a certain type of science fiction hero, a certain type of writing from that era. Gone over. Oh yeah, Carl saying, if only we'd gotten Frank's vision of Kralazak. Connor saying, do not fear the Ixians. They can make the machines, but they can no longer make Arafel. Gullyfoyle is a great character, says Connor. Gullyfoyle is a brilliant character. Gullyfoyle is a character that I wonder, is Gullyfoyle too much for a modern cinema audience? We've never seen Gullyfoyle on the screen, have we? But considering how, for example, the Baron Harkonnen is completely unpalatable. Almost every aspect of his character has been removed from Denis Villeneuve's film. Gullyfoyle is a great hero. He's an anti-hero. He's a bad guy. He's a murderer. He's a rapist. But that's the whole point. He's a great character. It's the flaws, the things, and as we often point out, for someone to go on a journey to become heroic or something like that, often they have to be in the shit. They have to be low. Just characters that are all singing, dancing, happy, nice people. They're very unbelievable sometimes. To be honest with you, they're very unrealistic. Gullyfoyle is a great character. The thing about Gully is he's not a bad guy, but what's done to him turns him into a bad guy. And he does horrible things. He's a victim, but he does redeem himself in a way. He still leaves victims behind him. He kills people, he rapes them. But at the end of it with Gully, there's something transformative. And he is an everyman. That again, one of those characters we're meant to look at him and see something about ourselves. But he's it's like a outrageous, high octane kind of James Bond thing in space. It's incredible. Tiger. I love it. I think it's a great book. I think he's one of the great characters. Absolutely, one of science fiction's golden characters, if you like. Just a fascinating, But always, the day the flesh shapes and the flesh the day shapes. He is a bit of a villain. He is absolutely a villain. There's a bit. I remember reading Tiger for the first time and having real distaste at this character, and I've been fascinated by him. It's the point where he rapes the girl in it, and you go, what the fuck? Excuse my French. This is our hero. What's going on here? and it is he's the other character then, Ben Reich in The Demolished Man, is an absolute monster. An absolute monster. And again, he's the character you're following through these books. It's something particular about those two books within science fiction, the Demolished Man and Tiger, Stars My Destination. The characters are amazing. The worlds are very fleshed out. And if you want to look at Dune as something kind of Jungian, there's something very Freudian about those books. It is indeed a bit of a villain. Chaya says, when I emigrated to Israel, I could only bring a limited part of my library. Well, that's sad. But all my Frank Herbert books made the cut. Good. I never leave book. I don't know. I've what's left of my books here, I suppose. Chaya have traveled with. I've moved all over the place, all over the years, going to here and there, and all my books fit into my car. I used to fit into my car. But sometimes you just got to leave ones behind and take what are necessary. But I books are really all I've got. My books, my guitars, and that's about it, really. I have a wee movie collection too, but my books are. I'm an impulse reader. I can just lift one off the shelf and open it up at random and just go, oh, I haven't looked at that in ages, But yeah, I'd tell you something, Chai. It's in my videos, but I'd found some of the. Would it be the Israeli covers, the Israeli versions? Would that be right to say of the Dune series? I put them in the videos, and they're esoteric as hell. They're really cool, and they also had I don't know if you know the ones I mean. The covers, the artwork was it had a look that was based on the David Lynch film, but they were just wonderfully surreal. I think one of my videos, I think it's probably like the conclusions and recommendations of the PhD or something, but I show I think there's one where I show lots and lots of different covers of the Dune books, or as many as I could from around the world. But there was those covers in particular that I just thought, those are nuts. I think they're brilliant. Gully Foyle, by the way, if you read, I've pointed this out in my wee video on it. If you read Tiger, Gully Foyle goes to Arrakis. And yeah, the kind of the Vorga is, if you like, or not the Vorga, sorry, the ship that he's on is his Gom Jabbar, isn't it? In a funny way, but Gully Foyle does it. At the end of it, he goes to Arrakis as he's tearing across the universe at the very end. Yes, indeed. Let me see. Is it here? It's the proper Arrakis, if you like. I have the first 5 in Hebrew. Still looking for the 6th. I wonder, is that one of your covers? I'm sure there's lots and lots and lots of different covers, but let me see. What was I thinking on there very quickly? Gully Foyle. Best thing. Oh, no. Can I find it very quickly for you? It's a nice little bit. That's my copy. It's one of these ones with the curved pages, which I quite like. Of course, the blurb on the back, considered by many to be the greatest single science fiction novel. What else have we got on the back? It's a rather good quote. I like that one. If you're actual genius, this is one of the great science fiction novels. I've written all over this. Prepared to. Let's see. Hang on. Rigel, Vega, Arrakis. That's what I've got. The last couple of pages. Very quickly. Let's see. Canopus, isn't it? So first he goes to Rigel and Orion, then he goes to Vega and Lyra, and again he turned now into now. Canopus, yellow as the sun, gigantic, thunderous in the silent wastes of space, at last invaded by the creature that once was Gild. The creature hung gulping on the beach of the universe, nearer death than life, nearer the future than the past, 10 leagues beyond the wide world's end. It wondered at the masses of dust, meteors and motes that girdled Canopus in a broad, flat ring, like the rings of Saturn and the breath of Saturn's orbit, and then he goes off to Aldebaran next, and then to Antares. But there you go. Canopus is the real star, isn't it? That's right at the very back of Tiger. It's literally like the last 3 pages. But there you go. Excuse me. I'll email you pics of the covers I have. Thank you very much, Chaya. That'd be great. It might be the ones that I've got. I might have them, but I'd appreciate it. There's a big eyeball in the one for Children of Dune, I think. But the Hebrew ones that I have are in the video somewhere. So, and I did one of my favorite sets of covers, Cynthia said, I must go. Thanks as always. Look forward to chapter 4. Thank you very much, Cynthia. As always, thanks for your input and take it easy. Chaya saying, good night, Cynthia. Carlos, buenos noches, Cynthia. Hope I pronounced that right, Carlos. Carlos and Tiger came before June, though it did indeed. It's well before it. I find wee things all over the place. It's just a wee thing. But the interesting thing about it, Canopus. Again, he says this is the bit from The Stars My Destination. He says, Canopus, yellow as the sun, gigantic, thunderous in the silent wastes of space at last, invaded by a creature that once was Guild. The creature hung gulping on the beach of the universe, nearer death than life, nearer the future than the past, 10 leagues beyond the wide world's end. It wandered at the mass of dust, meteors, and motes that girdled Canopus in a broad flat ring, like the rings of Saturn and of the breadth of Saturn's orbit. It's him where he's jumping through the different stages of the universe. There you go, at the end. But Canopus is the real star, isn't it? Of what is it, Arrakis in this book? Let me just quickly see if I can get this right. All right. Yes, Arrakis, third planet known as Dune, is the third planet of Canopus. There you go. I just sort of go. It's a little coincidence, isn't it? That's all. But there's if Herbert has read this book, there's that it's presented as a kind of desert planet, and there's some kind of Guild creature I just thought it was very interesting. But Gallifrey has visited Arrakis because that's the same place. So there you go. I even mentioned that in the video, but sometimes when I say wee things like this, Connor, I'm just having a bit of fun. There could be a connection there, but it probably isn't. But it's but yeah. For anyone who hasn't read it, again, I used to have a copy that said Tiger, but this is Stars My Destination. It's the same book, and it is considered one of the great masterpieces of science fiction. A really easy to read book as well. Very easy to read. It's just exceptionally good. Get a little bit of something for everybody in it, I think, But yes, indeed. So chapter 48 is to come, folks. It's going to be enormous. I don't know how many hours it's going to take. Excuse me. But my aim is to have it ready for within hopefully a fortnight. Pardon me, providing everything's okay. I hopefully don't see it taking longer than that, and I've already made a wee start on it, So it's going to be interesting. We'll have to have a wee bit of fun, maybe a bit of a celebration for when we reach the end. But there you go. It's a hell of a good book, says Connor. It is indeed. While we're on it very quickly, I suppose there's the Deceivers, the computer connection. But for anybody who's into Alfred Bester, what's it called? I have a rather good collection of his short stories here. It's called Virtual Unrealities. Is that it? A bunch of some of his books are it's one of those ones where who is it that does it at the minute? Kind of bugs me when somebody, it depends, I suppose, but sometimes when people publish books as under one title in one country and then they publish it as another in another country, I ended up buying two books that are the same, which annoys me a bit. I think Alistair Reynolds does that the minute. I think some of his books have more than one name. I've found books of his, but in Europe, over in the Netherlands, and I was about to buy them and then realised I'd already got them. That's the one I have there. It's called Virtual Unrealities. The short fiction of Alfred Bester. I haven't read this since probably about, I don't know how old I would have been, maybe about 19 or 20. When did this book come out? 97. Yeah, it would have been in my 20s, I think. Or no, I would have been quite young when I got it. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I remember reading all. It's been a long time since I read it. I couldn't really go into detail about any of the stories. There's quite a few. Good of me introduction by Robert Silverberg. Audionid, for example, is in here. So you maybe be familiar with some of them. But there's this one at the time has The Devil Without Glasses, which was previously unpublished. That's got a 3.5 to go of fragments. So there's some stuff there that's quite interesting for any Alfred Bester fans. That one's called The Virtual Unrealities, the short fiction of Alfred Bester. But I've read a good wee bit by Bester. I'm always be happy. I'm sure. I think there's a couple of things that I haven't read by him, and I'd be very happy to grab them and just to get round to. It's like we've a lot of science fiction writers here like that, haven't we? That are, I must get round to reading this, that, and the other by them. And having finished Xi Shen Lu's books, they're the Remembrance of Earth Past trilogy, which I'm hoping to do a wee bit of some videos on sometime soon. I'd really like to read some more by him, I think. Yeah, there we go. Listen, folks, 10-10 till we do it again, as they like to say. Connor Quinson, is it good? I have to read The Demolished Man. Yeah, the Demolished Man's brilliant. Tiger and Demolished Man, they go hand in hand. They're two masters. They're considered by many. What's the word? I suppose connoisseurs, if you like, of the science fiction form, to be in the top 10. Both books are in the top 10 of many people's lists of science fiction masterpieces. The Demolished Man is the ultimate. How would we put it? It's a murder mystery where you know who did it right from the get go. It's you're following the murderer. It's a perfect murder book. That's the way to describe it. Sorry, I was trying to think without giving anything away, Connor. It's a perfect murder story. It's really good, and I've read it 3 times now. And after the first time, clearly I know what happens. It doesn't ruin it for me at all. It's a cracker. The Demolished Man, yeah, absolutely brilliant. Ben Reich. These are the kind of granddaddy, the ancestors of cyberpunk. If you understand that, if you look at where you get X, Y, and Z, if you like, from Tiger, that you'll see a lot of in cyberpunk. The Demolished Man will really bring to the fore the main character, Ben Reich, who's this kind of I suppose the best way to describe him is he's an Elon Musk type, Richard Branson, mega corporation, big corporation, the very head of it, one of the world's richest men, this kind of thing. Man who can have anything he wants. And in comparison to, so this is the guy at the very top. And if you compare the book to Tiger, Gully Foyle is the very bottom, if you understand. So the Gully Foyle and Ben Reich are two characters who are worth looking at together. The 2 books are worth looking at together. But if you haven't read The Demolished Man and you've read Tiger, get there straight away. It's a cracking read. Absolutely brilliant. And don't let the book will trick you and fool you at the start deliberately. There's a trick in the book that's part of the plot, so don't let it worry you. Just keep reading. It's not a misprint, is what I would say. And I don't want to say anything else about it because I'll spoil it. But yeah, I've been thinking about putting a little video together of some kind of really famous sort of sci-fi detective stories, or murder, crime fiction, that type of thing that overlaps into sci-fi. And I thought about perhaps doing a wee video putting. I thought about The Demolished Man and doing it with possibly one of Philip K. Dick's, maybe Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and The Dead Mountaineers Inn. But the couple of others I was thinking of, but yeah, it's a great one. It's you love it, absolutely love it. In fact, listen, everything I've read by Alfred Bester, all the short stories, he's tip top. He's if you like Philip K. Dick, I think you would like him. I don't want to say he's a similar writer. They're quite similar in some ways. Sounds brilliant, says Connor. Asimov had plenty of that sort of story. Sorry, that'll be emoticon thing there covers up the words at the bottom, Connor. Yeah, Asimov's good. Some of his short stories are brilliant. Big fan of them. The same with Clarke too. I always point out that the book that got me going really was Of Time and Stars by Arthur C. Clarke. Has the 9 billion names of God and an ape about the house, which if you ever get a chance to read either of those 2 short stories, I just love them. They're so good. Listen, folks, my bladder's about to give up. We've been at it for 3 hours and 15. And as much as the banter's really good, I've got an awful lot of work to do to get this next goddamn chapter done. So I will say good night, folks. And hopefully we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for chapter 48. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be an epic thing to do. So bring sandwiches, that kind of thing, Asimov's plenty of that. So he's great. He is indeed, Conrad, a big fan of Asimov. The Complete Robot. Here's a great thing to read through. Connor said, cheers. Well, I'll say goodnight, folks. And take it easy wherever you are. Look after yourselves. And we'll see you hopefully real soon with the final chapter of Dune. In the meantime, all the very best. And good night. All the best. Take care.